It's another terrific Tuesday. Welcome aboard the AM show. Day 2 of the week, and we're here to serve you. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. Shortly, or should I say presently, the news will come your way. But right after that, we're going to be joined by educationist and country director, International Child Development Program, Joyce Lanyo. She is our guest as we slice and dice the newspapers. But then we get into our big stories, and we started talking about plastic waste. Well, the plastic waste generated in Ghana, out of the many, according to the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology, out of that, only 10% is recycled. The remaining waste ends up in the sea as debris, threatening not only marine life, but also human livelihoods of coastal dwellers in Ghana. Now, the most dangerous hazard this uncontrolled plastic waste is posing is the exposure of toxins found in plastic waste, which humans ingest. Richard Kwejudanko takes a look at the phenomenon and its impact in our latest Hotline documentary titled A Sea of Plastic. We're going to be looking at that. What should be done to remedy the situation? Well, join us as we explore this all-important matter. It affects you much more than you realize. We'd also be telling you about the Growth and Sustainability Bill. There's been a whole lot of talk about it. Government says this will raise revenue for growth and fiscal sustainability of the economy. But what are the underlying issues? What is the fine print that we ought to be looking at? We'd also bring you the latest from the Nigerian election. Some very interesting scenes there. Lagos fell yesterday from the hands of the APC to Peter Obi's Labour Party, but things do not appear so far to be going the way of the preferred candidate of the youth in Nigeria. How will things pan out? Well, we'll give you more insight on that later on the show. In the course of the live show, in the course of our live stream, you can send us a message with the hashtag AM show, and at the tail end, just shoot us a call if you'd like. Let us know what is on your mind. Kind of on that note, let's settle for the news up next. Thanks for staying on to the news now. And in our very first story, individual bondholders who opted not to participate in the domestic debt exchange program will have to wait at least 2 more weeks for their matured bonds to be paid, as the Finance Ministry says administrative processes are ongoing. This latest clarification from government comes after the coalition of individual bondholders pitched camp for hours at the Ministry of Finance, demanding answers on why government is not keeping its promise of payment of matured, non-tendered bonds on February the 21st. Joseph Akakpo, my colleague, was at the Finance Ministry and now reports.
Government had assured it was going to pay investors once their bonds matured. Some of the instruments matured on 6th and 20th February with the expectation of payment on February 21. But that did not happen. The coalition comprising Pensioner Bondholders Forum, Individual Bondholders Association of Ghana, and Individual Bondholders Forum was therefore back at the Finance Ministry in search of answers.
We just want to make sure that this is going to be paid. The assurance was given, 21st I will pay. And I think that if 21st you can't pay, or you couldn't do it on the 21st, it was only fair that that same 21st you came out with a statement explaining why you couldn't make it on the 21st and assuring your investor that, look, I'm going to do this way, wait for me 1 or 2 days or 3 days, I'm resolving these issues so that I come and pay you.
After hours of waiting and having a meeting with the minister, members say they have received a firm assurance of a detailed payment plan to be announced by the ministry.
With tomorrow being 1 week since the revised settlement date, we found it quite improper that there's been no communication about payment. From our perspective, what typically will be done is that the day that you are using as a benchmark, you should be announcing to investors what the payment plan is. We want to assume that the government may have been overwhelmed, so we've granted that, and we decided to come as a collective to meet with the minister so we can have clarity and have our members also understand exactly where we are, and have the broader investor community also have clarity on what to expect and how to manage this entire debt exercise. We have received some clarity. We've received commitments to improve communication between both parties, as in government and all of us as a common group, i.e. the Pensioners and Bondholders Forum, the Individual Bondholders Association of Ghana, and the Individual Bondholders Forum.
We have been assured by the minister that the ministry is issuing a press release latest by the close of day today, and that is where they will state how they are going to meet the payment of the outstanding bonds. We have been assured that from the press release that will come, it will specify when it is going to be paid, whether they will pay all up to a point or it will be staggered. We don't have that information, but the minister will issue a statement, and from that statement, there we will know when people are going to get their money.
But that would determine your next time as well, or you've already been briefed on that?
Well, if the statement comes, we believe the statement that will be coming will be accepted, because they have given assurances that within a time frame, these things will be sorted out. They are doing according to them, they are doing reconciliation to ensure that you know exactly who must be paid and who must not be paid. So let's grant them that period to do the reconciliation, and when we come out with the statement today, we will see where we are going forward from with that program.
The statement from the ministry is also expected to provide details on what accounted for the non-payment on February 21.
Now, the Darul Hadith Institute for Islamic Studies is calling for a concerted effort among various religious and social groupings to create lasting peace in Bawku. This follows weeks of renewed violent clashes in the area. The group has acknowledged efforts by government through the security agencies in peace building, but believes there is need for more to be done. Head of the institution, Sheikh Anas Taufik Ibrahim Bakri, wants media houses inciting violence in the area sanctioned, as he calls on the public to exercise restraint in their comments.
We call on all stakeholders, including government, Nairi, Kusasi Chief, civil society organizations, the media, faith-based organizations, northern political and business elites, youth groups, Mamprusi and Kusasi graduates and students organizations, women groups, and the entire Ghanaian community to join hands in waging an enduring peace in Bawku. This deserves our complete and clear support. We also call on the youth and other stakeholders to be measured and exercise some level of moderation in their pronouncement in order to restore peace in the area. On the part of government, high level of humility and sincerity is needed in handling the situation at hand. We expect the National Media Commission to up their regulatory mandate by applying appropriate sanctions to media houses that are used to incite violence in the area. We also call on the Minister for Defense and the Minister for Interior, being sons of the North, to do more in resolving the conflict in Bawku. The President has done it all by entrusting the security of the country in their hands. So there should be absolutely no justification for this conflict to continue in a relatively small area like Bawku. And while the presence of military on the ground may bring about negative peace by temporarily calming the situation, we maintain continuous multi-stakeholder engagement is critical. We call on the government to set up a special relief fund for the people of that area, especially for women and children, as they continue to lose their businesses and breadwinners through this conflict.
Now, traditional authorities at Pulima in the Sisala West district of the Upper West region have banned the burning of charcoal using dawa trees. Paramount Chief Kworo Osman Dewiet Nankpa, who announced the ban, said they would liaise with the Sisala West District Assembly and the Forestry Commission to ensure that offenders caught are sanctioned. Rafiq Salam reports.
Charcoal burning since the days of yore has been the pastime of the people of the Sisala enclave. It was done in small quantities for domestic purposes. However, with the passage of time and the people in their attempt to make ends meet are now doing it in large quantities and for commercial purposes. Trees, mostly used for the commercial venture, are shea and dawadawa. These are economic trees that grows in the wild and in an ecological zone considered to be fragile. Paramount Chief of the Poloma traditional area, Kworo Osman Dewiet Nankpa, speaking at the annual Gandawi Nabahelme Festival, celebrated by the chiefs and people of the area, lamented about the indiscriminate cutting of economic trees for charcoal burning. He warned those involved in the act to stop or they will be severely dealt with.
The shea and the whatever trees, which have been phenomenal in the socio-economic lives of our people, have recently come under the hewing axe without recourse to everyone's cry. The chiefs and people of this traditional area in our meeting have unanimously resolved that we have banned the burning of charcoal in our traditional area using shea and dawa trees. This ban is effective today, and anyone caught in the act of felling shea and dawa trees for charcoal burning shall be sanctioned with punitive measures. We shall work with the District Assembly and the Forestry Commission to make this ban very, very biting.
Kworo Osman Dewiet Nankpa also used the occasion to speak about other challenges in the area. Key among them is the 76 kilometers Wahem Polumutumu Road project, which government has awarded to 5 contractors for execution.
The chiefs and people of this traditional area reaffirm our commitment to give the contractors working on the stretch of the road our maximum support to make the road completion a reality. The chiefs and people seize this opportunity to condemn in no uncertain terms the unfortunate incident of skirmishes that erupted in the Pulma community, leading to the firing of guns relative to a land allocated to one of the contractors to excavate gravel for same project that we all cry in day out every day. We further appeal that the EU Farm Access Roads initiative that saw the Sisala land nearly going up in flames because of our exclusion from the project, despite the fact that it remains undisputed that the Sisala land produces significant proportions of Ghana's grain stock year in, year out. This issue, Honorable Regional Minister's representative, must be revisited to give our roads the needed facelift.
Sisala West Member of Parliament, Mohamed Soparu, urged the people to work to maintain the relative peace in the area.
And so therefore we must at all times lead an exemplary life for the youth to emulate so that we will continue to have the peace that we are enjoying in our communities. It is only through that we can get development. It is only through peace. When they say there is fire in Gandawe, not even His Excellency the President of the Republic, who has control, and even our military would want to step his foot here. Never. He wouldn't come here. It is only when they say Gandawe, there is peace in Gandawe. That is when civil organizations, NGOs, politicians, people will be trooping in to ask us to know some of our challenges so that they can come into our aid.
Reporting for JoyNews, Rafiq Salam, Sobale.
On to education now, and the Student Representative Council of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology has established an endowment fund to help student entrepreneurs. The president, Frank Owusu, says this will aim or complement the university's efforts to groom entrepreneurs. There is more in this report.
Data from the University of Ghana has revealed that only 10% of graduates find jobs after their first year of completing school. The data also indicated that it may take up to 10 years for a larger number of graduates to secure employment. Mr. Franco believes the endowment fund will curb this trend.
We want to groom students to also become entrepreneurs. But as an SRC, we believe that we have to find ways and means of ensuring that we achieve our mission as a university and also solve the issue of graduate unemployment in the nation. I believe as a university, we shouldn't only sit down to train people to be employed, but rather we are also training people to employ. We have had a lot of instances in the nation whereby people will finish school and they will go and join the Unemployed Graduate Association of Ghana, and it's something that we don't want. As an SRC, this is something that we have been able to bring up upon consultation with all the stakeholders within the university, management, the student parliament, and then the SRC. And then we have come up with this particular fund to help ensure that every single student out of the school fees he or she is paying is contributing 5 Ghana cedis for the establishment of this particular fund. And this particular 5 Ghana cedis is going to go a long way to help ensure that every student who has a brilliant idea or an initiative or an intervention that you think can help, we will bring it on board, we will support with the fund, and it will go a long way to help ensure we reduce the issue of graduate unemployment, and we also train employers to employ people for the world of work.
Kane University Vice Chancellor Professor Mrs. Akosia Dixon pledged the university's commitment to train future entrepreneurs.
And we believe that this is very, very laudable. And we, as the president said, we don't want any of our students to join that, I call it a very unpopular association. I don't even want to mention the name. He was bold to do so. Indeed, our focus with the current vision is not only to train employees, but also to train employers, and Frank emphasized that. I wish to assure you that KNUST will continue to create an enabling environment for entrepreneurship training to continue to take center stage in whatever we do.
Reporting for JoyNews, Kwesi Debra.
Now, the Member of Parliament for Yendi, Farouk Aliyu Mahama, has supported 75 brilliant but needy students in his constituency. Each beneficiary received between 1,500 and 2,000 Ghana cedis to help pay their fees. Alhaj Aliyu Mahama says education is the passport to the future for those who prepare for it, adding that this defines the focus of his leadership and the major direction of his social interventions.
Speaking at the disbursement ceremony, the MP said education is the passport to the future for those who prepare for it, adding that this defines the focus of his leadership and the major direction of his social interventions.
Education is the passport to the future for tomorrow's belonging to those who are prepared for it. This defines the focus of my leadership and the major direction of my social intervention. My current programs, projects, and policies in the educational sector is set to offer us with educational well-looked for out and to get an improved infrastructure, modern learning materials, putting the teacher and the students.
Deputy Director, Administration and Finance of the Ghana Education Service, Idrisu Amadou, who represented the Municipal Director of Education, said the commitment of the MP to education in the municipality is phenomenal.
As a country, for us to develop, then we must take education very serious. So that is why we deem it very, very important that the Honorable Member of Parliament has thought it wise to institute this scholarship scheme to help needy but brilliant children.
He urged the Member of Parliament to give more opportunities to girls in such award schemes.
So I will urge that next time we are instituting such award schemes, let's consider the girls. Let's give them more opportunities. Let's give them all the assistance that they will require so that they will also to the level that our MP is.
Some of the beneficiaries spoke to JoyNews.
I'm one of the beneficiaries from the Mapitso scholarship. On behalf of my colleagues here, I would like to say a very big thank you to our honorable MP.
I think we can pay him back. The only payback we can offer to him is vote and vote wisely.
I benefit from the farm. I wish next year to be the next MP of this community. I am so happy to get this scholarship. I am very happy so that I can prove my parents that I can be like Farouk.
The news is done, but I'll tell you what's just about to begin. The news review. Let's stay with us and let's have a great time right after the break. Welcome back on the AM show. Time now for us to get into the papers. It's brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. We're offering free prostate screening and free female fertility screening as well. Take advantage. Where can you locate us? We're in Accra, Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard in Kumasi, Kronum Abwehia, behind the Angel Educational Complex in Takrade and Naji Estate, Tema Community 22, Techiman, Hanswa, and Esiama and Zima. You can reach us on 0244 867-068 or 0274-234-321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But only the commencement of the news review, and we are joined by educationist and country director, International Child Development Program, Joyce Lanyo. She'll be joining us shortly as we get into the latest from the world of the newspapers. But just to let you know, I have this morning the Daily Graphic, the Ghanaian Times, the Daily Guide, the Finder newspaper, and the Daily Statesman. Let's start with the Daily Graphic, but even before that, I do not know how much of the Nigerian election you've been following. I've been following it keenly. I have very strong ties to Nigeria, lived there with my family, and especially, you know, we can have all the trade-offs and all the brotherhood, sisterhood, and sometimes feisty relationships. We can thrash them in football and have all the competitiveness. But when it comes to their elections, what happens in that country reflects on the rest of the continent. And we all need to take a keen interest looking at the geopolitics and looking at the economic situation. It's a powerhouse, Africa's juggernaut when it comes to economy and population. So we cannot but pay attention to what is happening in Nigeria. For me, one joy I have is that third force, Peter Obi, and what he's doing there. Win or lose, he is reshaping the thinking of Nigerians, especially Nigerian youth. And I feel as a country, we ought to get to that point as well. This duopoly of the NDC and the MPP, it served us to some extent, but there's a whole lot more that I feel we could have done or can do. And would a third force be able to get us there? I think so, if we get the right people in leadership. But anyway, let's get on board with Joyce Lanyo, educationist, country director, International Child Development Program. Madam Lanyo, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mr. Akakpo.
You can call me Ben. It's so good to have you join the conversation. It's been a while since I saw you, joining us, had you join us on the show. I hope you've been well.
Yes, I'm very well, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Great.
I'm busy with other things, that's why. But here we are today. I'm here by God's grace.
Great. I'll be asking you about the Nigerian situation and what you make of it, but some of the stories reflect that. And so I'll just move on to the newspapers since they capture part of that. But the Daily Graphic this morning, SHS Freshers Report for School, that is first year students. Exodus for greener pastures, 100 nurses leave Pantang Hospital. And this is becoming a menacing situation, the brain drain, if you like. I have friends, personal friends, medical doctors, nurses, among others, who are flocked out of the country just between 2 years ago, last year especially. A lot of my friends who are in the medical sphere left, and it appears the trend is continuing. And I do recall that in the first quarter of last year, it was said that 3,000 nurses, first quarter of 2022, you can go check it out, 3,000 nurses had left the country. It appears the trend is continuing. And even worse, when it comes to mental health, we don't pay so much attention to that, unfortunately, as a state, as a people. And 100 of those nurses are also leaving. Very sad situation. I'll be reading that story shortly. Ban on used electrical appliances to reduce electricity cost. That's according to the Energy Commission. And then ECOWAS AU Commonwealth Observer missions commend Nigerians. But let's start with that story about mental health. Nearly 150 experienced nurses and other health professionals from the Pantang Hospital have left the shores of the country in search of greener pastures in the last 6 years. Of the number, 100 are specialized psychiatric and general nurses, while the rest consists of doctors, pharmacists, technicians, and other experienced personnel in the healthcare delivery chain. Data sourced from the hospital showed that the number of experienced professionals that had abandoned their jobs started increasing in an alarming manner since the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic. This phenomenon is defeating the efforts of the government to reinforce the work of the hospital with the recruitment of an additional 179 staff, that is, professional nurses numbering 129 between 2018 and 2022. Now, an assessment of the data showed that from a report of 8 professionals leaving in 2018, the number gradually jumped to 26 personnel in 2020 and peaked at 64 practitioners residing in 2022. You see the trend I was speaking of. The situation became even more alarming when 11 experienced professionals made up of 10 nurses and 1 doctor resigned in January this year alone. 11. Information gathered by the Daily Graphic indicates that the development has been reported to the Ministry of Health for redress. Unfortunately, we always wait till the damage has been done. But how do we go back on this? Like I said, Joyce, we don't have too many professionals in this sector, and now brain drain is hitting us. We're not paying our staff well, so to speak. I mean, there are greener pastures elsewhere, and people will take them. Your reflection?
Yes, thank you very much. The issue about brain drain is a very worrying phenomenon that the state will have to take a look at. I remember those days in the early 80s when our teachers were leaving to Nigeria and Libya and other greener pastures. It was actually an issue for we, the students, to cope. So sixth formers and other people had to come in to support. I remember very well we were shuttling from one extra class to another just to make up for whatever we are losing in terms of the inavailability of teachers. I mean, when the country spends resources to train these persons and they come out, we should look at them and take good care of them. Otherwise, with the current economic situation, where our resources do not add up to whatever we want to achieve, they will definitely be looking elsewhere. And it's sad that, especially within our health sector, our nurses are leaving us because they've found a location where the payments and the rewards are much more attractive, and that's where they choose to go. So I will plead with our authorities to look at these skilled labor very well, because it's very hard to come by. And here you are talking about experienced health care officials. So they have been on the job for over a period. They've gained a lot of skills and knowledge, and rather channeling it to help us, they are leaving. So it's time now to look at them and then seek whatever it is that they are looking for. And if not meeting them 100%, meet them halfway. Because home sweet home. You know, if you travel, it's not the same But when you are home, you are comfortable, you are able to take care of all your needs, your family, then you can give of your best. But in the case where you are not financially okay, you will have to look elsewhere to look for extra resources to add up to whatever expenditure you have. I mean, anybody at all would start thinking twice and say, look, it's better I go somewhere else where I'll have all what it takes to help me do my job and then receive the reward that I deserve. So we have to take a look again at the reward system for our nurses, our doctors, our paramedics, and then profess something that will make them feel comfortable. I remember during the COVID time, nurses were promised some allowances, and it turned out that they did not receive it, so they had to issue statements to call the government's attention to all these promises they made to them. I think their patience is running out, and they are looking elsewhere.
Madam Lajo, it's not running out. It has run out for most of them. It has run out, and now we're seeing the ripple effect. You would see that looking at the situation we're talking about. If you just look at what the story says, 2018, you had 8 people leaving, and then it jumped to 26. Now we're talking 64. And how many of these medical practitioners do we have? What is the gap in terms of what the UN requirements are or the global standards are and what we have here in terms of doctors, for example? There's a paucity of doctors. Then the nurses, at least that is much better in terms of the ratio. But if we lose them in droves like we are now, there can be only one result. And for me, what is even more worrisome is the fact that no country develops without the human resource. We need the human resource. And here, we just get the human resource ready every time, and then other entities come and pick them. I keep saying Japan now has a very aged population. They're looking for young people. I have a friend who has lived in Japan for a long time. I have friends in Japan, Canada, Australia. And when you speak to young people, a lot of them just keep telling you, I just want that opportunity. I'll be out of here. Some of my medical friends who were speaking to me just about a year and a half, 2 ago, saying they will go, I actually thought they were joking because we were all saying, look, we have to be in Ghana and serve. Guess what? They've left. These are people who are committed to the brand Ghana, but they will also tell you in this country, if you don't do something for yourself, no one will celebrate you. So let's go and make some money and come back into the country. And just before you conclude on that, I find it interesting. My own father, and this is how I even ended up in Nigeria, part of my childhood in Nigeria. He was an architect and civil engineer. His work took him round. So you can call it a bit of brain drain because we were traveling to different countries in Africa and beyond. But that was the 80s, late 70s, early 80s. I am thinking, in this Fourth Republic, I studied JSS. I was reading about brain drain and all of that. Still, 30 years plus on, we're still talking about brain drain. We're definitely not getting something right. Definitely not.
Yeah, I agree with you, definitely. I mean, people will leave because of certain conditions, and especially economic conditions. After receiving all the training and the skills, you go to your workplace, you don't even get the resources to work with, let alone the reward that you deserve. So it's very unfortunate. And these are skilled nurses and the paramedics, doctors who are leaving the country. When they go out there, they perform in an outstanding way. And wherever they are, they just don't want to leave them alone. So they motivate them, they give them what it takes, accommodation and everything, allowances, and they are cool. So it's high time we start looking at the provisions in terms of the conditions of service of our paramedics, nurses, doctors, so that they become comfortable and do ply their trade in a much more comfortable and happy manner, rather than always going to job and you are not happy. You are thinking of the next day's meal, how to pay the child's fees and other services that you need to render to make life very comfortable for you. So it's high time we start looking at all the processes to motivate these our experienced, skilled labor that are living to try and stay and help the country, contribute their quota after the government or people have also used their taxpayers' money to support them. So we really have to do something drastic about it. Otherwise, in the next 5 years, we will be left with no skilled nurse or doctor to take care of us. And all of us will stand at risk. You might say today you are okay, but tomorrow you will be a victim at a hospital where there is no qualified medical personnel to take care of.
And I'll just say this in passing. Sometimes politicians or the powers that be feel, oh, I mean, it will not happen to us. We can fly outside of the country. I'll not mention names. We've seen very prominent people at the very top of leadership in this country who have passed, unfortunately, because in some instances, they couldn't get medical assistance quickly. I can count on my fingers at least 4 or 5 people that come to mind. The very apex of leadership in this country. So I'll just leave it at that. If we want to continue like this, it is going to come back to bite us. But on page 16 and 17, pages 16 and 17, ban on used electrical appliances to reduce electricity costs. That's according to the Energy Commission. And the decision to ban the importation of some used electrical appliances and renewable energy products will reduce the burden of electricity cost on the consumer, the Executive Secretary of the Energy Commission, Oscar Amonuneza, has said, explaining that the move was not to deprive people of their daily bread. He said it would rather make the country a safe haven for doing business. That's the first story. SHS freshers report for school. After all the brouhaha, the back and forth, they are there. Now, trunks, chop boxes, like we call them, mattresses, pillows, brooms and brushes moved from one second cycle boarding school to the other as first-year students started reporting to the various institutions yesterday. This follows their placement into the various senior high schools and technical and vocational institutes under the computerized school selection and placement system of the Ghana Education Service. The last time I checked, over 90%, I think about 91% of them, those who had issues, the 165,000, many of those who thronged the Nat Hall, 91% of them had their issues resolved. Then on page 17, use of Ghana card for voter registration. Professor Jampo calls for dialogue. I'll just wrap with that story so you can reflect, Madam Lanyo. A senior lecturer at the University of Ghana, Legon, Professor Ransford Jampo, has called on the Electoral Commission to initiate a national dialogue to help build consensus on the proposed use of the Ghana card as the sole source document for voter registration in the country. The consensus, which he said must be sincere and genuine, should include all stakeholders involved in the country's electioneering exercise, such as political parties. Professor Jampo said the mandate of state institutions such as the EC required them to get the buy-in of all stakeholders for consensus building, hence the need for a national dialogue. And we know Parliament last Thursday directed the chairperson of the EC, Jean Mensah, to appear in person before the Committee of the Whole of Parliament to brief members on the new CI as Parliament resumed sitting today. What do you make of this Ghana card for voting issue, especially as there are so many who do not have their Ghana card? Some actually through their own fault, others through no fault of theirs. For example, it took about 2 years for my own mother to get her Ghana card. I had pursued that matter till she had to call, I don't want to mention names, but those are the very helm of affairs at the NIA before some things were done. I don't know. What is your take on that? And then the ban on used electrical appliances and SHS freshers back in school.
Okay, so let me come to issues around elections. Since the Nigerian election, it's a fresh wind blowing around and we are learning lessons from it to inform how probably we will also organize and have a very free and fair election. Ghanaians are last-minute people. I mean, issue about this Ghana card came up severally where we had to just go and register. Of course, the registration process was fraught with all manner of challenges where people will spend a whole day and they are still at the tail end of the queue. Registration was quite slow, machines were breaking down, whatever. But I believe that if we want to have a very free and fair election, all the necessary resources and avenues should be made available for people to vote or to have the ability to choose their leaders. But where we have one single card to be used as, the means to get your vote through, I think something should be done about it. There are a lot of key stakeholders that are available to discuss. The former Electoral Commissioner, Mr. Ferijan, I can mention David Kanga and other.
And he has shared his concerns about, making the Ghana card the sole document for registration. He has shared his concerns at a point.
Yeah. So you can imagine that all these people are being, even the populists themselves, we have to make an input, because in a democratic process, there should be dialogue, there should be consensus building where we share our thoughts. And based on that, a meaningful decision is taken. But to say that Ghana card should be the sole card that should be used for this electoral process, I mean, you are denying a chunk of the population the opportunity to vote. And that can breed some level of, displeasure and bring about a whole lot of issues concerning our electoral process. So we have a bit of time to dialogue, talk about this, and come to the table with an agreed consensus so that we can make progress. Otherwise, we stand the risk of a confusion at the tail end when we are getting, and denying people of the ability to vote. I don't know how the feeling will be, but we should still open up for dialogue and let the key stakeholders come to the table and come out with a consensus with which that will be our blueprint to go during our voting process. Now, when it comes to the electrical appliances, the gadgets, it's this same poverty issue that makes people go and buy the lower versions, the used ones. Otherwise, now due to climate change issues, standards should be met in relation to our electrical gadgets. And if those standards are not met, then those gadgets they pose a threat. There are a whole lot of issues concerning these used products, especially the electrical ones. You don't know, you cannot confirm the conditions of those gadgets when they were brought in, whether they were almost at the tail end of destruction or certain things are not right with that gadget. And we take them hook, line, and sinker. We buy them and we are happy. In no time, they break down. In no time, they catch fire. And it's become a huge challenge. Right. Houses are being burnt because of some of these used gadgets. And there are minimum standards we need to use in terms of these gadgets. These are global standards. So I think it's very difficult for people to accept that, you can walk in and get an iron at a much more cheaper price. But there is also some risk accompanied to it. And that the country itself is not abiding by these standards for which electrical gadgets should be used. So I think it's in right place. But the Ghanaian populace and how we are used, even clothing, even undergarments, we buy used ones, which are all risk, but we take them for granted. So I think it's in right place to select electrical gadgets that can pose a threat to our livelihoods so that we will all meet the global standards in terms of these electrical appliances. And that will cost us less. Okay. Because we will be paying extra monies and repurchasing once they break down, or else maybe one good one meeting the national or international standards will travel with you over a period of time. So it's also helping us to save the little resource that we have.
Let's you have a final reflection briefly on that.
I was going to talk about the free SHS and how parents are running skelter. with certain things, I find it very worrying. Now, with globalization and learnings from other places, the issue about sending brooms and whatever is a thing of the past. Carrying chobosses, we were carrying chobosses those times. And we are after 30 years, we are still carrying chobosses on our heads to school. Something should be done about it to lessen the burden of parents, getting their children into these institutions to get whatever the children will need to be able to settle in terms of their studies, so that they settle in a much more comfortable manner, rather than carrying chobosses, trunks, brooms, cutlasses. I mean, let's come into terms with realities in terms of what is happening all around us and change our strategies a bit to comfort. If we say we are going with the free SHS,
right,
some of these things should just be put at the back bencher and rather create the avenue for children to settle in and get themselves ready for the teaching and learning process.
Let's wrap with a bit of news from Nigeria. And I wholly agree with you. If so many decades ago, while something was being done, and even my time, similar situation, and still it's being done, this country is just a pointer to the fact that we're not really making tracks. We're marking time. We're not making tracks. We're marking time. That's it. But on page 20, so 3 observer missions have commended Nigerians for the enthusiasm with which they approached the elections and urged them to remain calm and respect the outcome of the polls as announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission. They called on aggrieved parties to use legal channels to resolve any electoral dispute. The 3 observer teams are the Economic Community of West African States, led by former President of Sierra Leone, Ernest Bai Koroma, and deputized by Baba Kamara, a former National Security Advisor of Ghana, the African Union, led by the former President of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, and the Commonwealth, led by former President Thabo Mbeki of South Africa. Now, addressing the media, I just want to skip some portions. They expressed grave concern about the delay in collating electoral results by the INEC, which they said was likely to heighten tension and anxiety among Nigerians. Mention is also made of the fact that voting started very late in certain areas. Now, the group said a series of meetings was held by the missions with the INEC on arrival in Nigeria to ensure a free, fair, and transparent election to consolidate the democratic gains made by Nigeria since the end of military rule in 1999. I mean, we're talking about the positives, but there are negatives as well to this entire enterprise. At a point, the Labour Party's Peter Obi came out to, speak to some of these. And now we're hearing that I don't want to say, they have a different term, not biometric, but basically the electronic system that was supposed to enhance the electoral process in some places was ditched and they went manual again. And some people are suspecting foul play. I don't know what it is, but African elections are always mired by this or that. Look at we ourselves and our own problems. Just very briefly on this, we've already spoken about it, so some 30 seconds if you can.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, there was a mutual agreement between the political parties concerning how they were going to run the elections. So this electronic transmission was part of the agreements they arrived at. Now we are in a case where they have abandoned the electronic transmissions, and then they are using manual. And that's where they are shouting wolf, because then they've diverted from the initial mutual agreement they had in terms of the transmission of the results. And these things breed disagreements, mistrust, and the thinking that one party is trying to subvert the results or the will of the people. And that's where you have people. Obasanjo has spoken, has written seriously against some of these things, right, to the extent that the election should be annulled in some of the states. It's rather unfortunate, but we should go with the talk. When you say A, it should be A and not A, and then it turns out to be BC. If you ask my view, this is what I think.
The Ghanaian Times newspaper now, Asante Hene warns chiefs, stop double land sales or incur my wrath. But will it work, even when he says it? There's also payment for coupons principals of matured old bonds to begin March 13. That's according to the Finance Ministry. Yesterday, we saw another, I don't know whether to call it a picketing spree, as they went there, sat there for hours, finally had an interaction, and this new date was communicated. Well, in fact, they should have been paid sometime last month, I think on the 21st or something like that. I'll bring you details of that story. Neutral mediation process key to ending Boko crisis. That's according to Austin Game. And $8.5 million needed to host African Para Games in Accra, the Para. Okay, so, and then there's 29 Galamseyas arrested in Kwaibibrim. Let me just bring you some details of those stories, all of them together for your reflection. Ghana National Association of Small-Scale Miners Task Force has arrested 29 illegal miners operating in the Kwaibibrim municipality of the Eastern Region. The illegal miners, popularly known as Galamseyas, who were grabbed in a swoop at 3 separate sites at Achim Pramkese and Achim Abodom, had destroyed areas of cocoa and palm plantations. Already done. The destruction is done. When the task force went to the mining sites, the Galamseyas had diverted the course, and this is always what they do. That is the flow of the Birim River, and were mining in it. Others who were grabbed were initially kept at the Pramkese police station, but later transferred to the Kibi Divisional Police Command, where they will be processed for court. Processed for court. I'm hoping that processed for court means processed for court, and we'll get to know what hefty sentences have been handed down to them, and we'll get to know which prisons they are going to be in, and all of that, if found culpable, of course. But anyway, sometimes I think I get too passionate about Ghana when our leaders themselves maybe may not be that passionate. Page 12. The Asante-Hene Otumfuo Osei II has expressed grave concern about the way and manner some of his traditional leaders have involved themselves in double sale of lands and others forcefully snatching land from owners whose over expired lease with impunity. He has therefore warned Kumasi traditional leaders to stop cheating residents with their authority over lands or face his wrath. It's a typical situation here in Accra. It's pervasive. And then payment for coupons, principles of matured old bonds to begin March 13. And the payment of the coupons and principles of bondholders who did not partake in the domestic debt exchange program will begin on March 13, 2023. The finance minister has announced. Like I said, it should have been earlier, but without any communication, now we're being told it's been pushed to March the 13th. Quick reflections on these three?
Yeah, I will talk about the domestic debt exchange program that is happening. And, you know, these various groups have now put themselves together as a coalition, you know, advocating for whatever is due them. Why can't we just follow the rule and the regulation to satisfy these bondholders when the time is due? People have made their plans and they know what to do, their medical care, other areas where they will need to, you know, use these funds to support their lives. But here we are, today government says A and it tends to be B, the dates are not followed, there is no mutual, and even if you cannot make the dates, the necessary communication needed to inform them that, look, we are still working on it, we are having few challenges and that will come back to you. All those things are not there. So now they've come together as a coalition and they are pushing hard. We will plead with the key stakeholders working in this area to try very much and meet the needs of our bondholders. These are their monies that they've invested. And please, let's agree to actually work towards meeting whatever has been agreed upon initially. Rather than not say anything, the time is due, they have to come together, issue statements, and, you know, come to the ministry and picket. Is very, very sad. It doesn't paint a very good picture of the country concerning these, our bondholders and their investments.
Right.
So if you ask me, that's what I would say. The government should try and be very clear and meet them and be transparent, issue messages for them to appreciate the situation and have the patience to get their monies rather than sitting in no communication and we'll have to come around and pick it again. It doesn't speak well of us, even though we are in this IMF situation and we'll have to work out to come out of it. The issue around Galamsey is something, it's a phenomena that I don't know where Ghanaians, we learned this from. Very stiff-necked people, People are galamseying every day. I go to Kede, and when I'm crossing a certain bridge, I see clearly that upstream people are still digging and mixing, not talking about the health implications, the heavy metals, and the degradation of our forest reserve and our land, the dangers for farmers and their families on their way to farm, the flooding that will come on our way. Something drastic, I don't know what that thing is, should be done. Government officials who are involved, who are behind, of course, these people cannot be there on their own weight. These heavy earth-moving machines, they just can't afford. So we are still pleading with government to come out clear and issue sanctions, strict sanctions. How can a Chinese man come to Ghana and start digging and destroy our, when we are here? And after that, she carries the money away. How did she get there? Our chiefs, our opinion leaders, where were they? Who gave those people the land? And they are still destroying.
Right.
Forget that the implications will fly back in our faces very soon. I'm sorry, but Ghana is in a mess, and we need to do something to come out of this mess and reclaim our status. Yeah, so I don't know the next.
Let's wrap with a few more stories. This will be the last batch. So the Ghanaian Times newspaper, just staying on that story about the Chief Executive Officer of the Game & Game Group, Mr. Austin Akufo-Game, he is suggesting that it is time for alternative dispute resolution to help resolve the Boku crisis. And he is saying the persistent and tireless efforts of the state in getting the various security agencies, the National Peace Council, the law courts, and the people of Boku and its environs to resolve the conflict without success needed a non-partisan and neutral mediation process to engage the feuding factions. There's also the Daily Guide newspaper, My Life in Danger, NDC chair cries, and the Greater Accra Regional Chairman of the NDC, Ni Ashimore, whose office was burgled on the dawn of yesterday, has requested 24-hour police protection, claiming that his life is in danger. According to him, the raid on Monday at his First Junction office in Tishi and Accra suburb by unknown persons is the third in a series of attacks and attempts on his life, indicating that he has known no peace since becoming the party's Greater Accra Regional Chairman. There have been stories about him and stories with his party as well. The final newspaper, NIA owes creditors $117 million. $65 million has to be paid before it can continue to print cards. In fact, we're told that one of the outfits, or an outfit that they owe, seized some 3,000 unprinted cards, and so they cannot even go ahead to print those. Any quick reflections on one or two of these stories, and we can leave?
So I'll come with the NIA cards that cannot be printed. And it's a dilemma we are in. If these cards, this same stakeholders are saying we are going to use our NIA cards to vote and do other important transactions, yet the cards are not available. We are owing whoever is producing the cards. So how do we overcome all these challenges for people to be able to easily access the cards and do what they want to do with it, even to the extent of voting? So wherever it is that the monies are being withheld to pay whoever to bring the cards to our level for us to be able to, we plead that government should take it up, look into it, and find a lasting solution. Next year around this time, we will be heading towards our voting process. And if our cards are still in the air and we cannot access them, that's a challenge. Politics has become a risk for people to take in terms of their lives. And so you might find a section of people not happy for you taking a certain political position and would want to probably eliminate you or render you useless. So you cannot even apply whatever you want to do in terms of supporting with the political situation. I will plead that the security officer should go straight to look into it. And my question is, where were the security officials? Because it's like a factory. I saw the place as a factory where production takes place. So who was taking care of the security concerns of the place and was just there for people to come in, break into the gentleman's bedroom and ransack and, take things. So the security system should be upgraded. I believe the police are capable of looking into the matter and bringing the perpetrators to book. And we should always be conscious to be sure that we are safe in whatever we are doing, especially in certain unique positions where people would want to run you down or eliminate you for them to achieve their personal gains. It's rather unfortunate that Shimo went through this very difficult situation, but then the security officers and officials, the police, should really come to our aid, look into the matter, and the perpetrators brought to book.
Right.
In future circumstances like that.
Thank you so much, Joyce Lanyo. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're grateful that you took the time. She's an educationist, and she's the Country Director, International Child Development Program. She joined us for the news review. Right before we go into sports, Dramado Selom Draman. I don't know whether you're still president of the Ghana Unemployed Graduates Network, but a very passionate Ghanaian. I hear today is your birthday. Happy birthday to you, and God keep blessing and uplifting you. Of course, the news review was brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. But up next, we have sports right here on the AM Show. Do stay.
Good morning. Let's do sports now on the AM show with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullahi. The family of late Black Stars player Christian Achiu paid a call on the president of the country, Nana Akufo-Addo, and officially informed him of the demise of the former national team footballer. The president, who received them in the Jubilee House, assured them of his support and his availability to officially attend the funeral of the late Achiu.
The Chief of Staff, who unfortunately is outside Accra today, to make sure that we organize a state-assisted funeral for Christian Achiu, depending on the date that you, the members of the family and the GFA, will select. And that everything will be done from the point of view of government to make sure that he's given a dignified exit. I think it's my duty and my responsibility as president to make sure that that happens. I don't know what your plans are, but I would think that the sooner we can get this unfortunate episode behind us, the better for all of us, as a nation, as a community, as a family, as a sporting fraternity, and not to have it linger for too long. But as I say, the decision as to when the funeral will take place is that of the family. That is a tradition in Ghana that all of us know. That when it comes to matters of death and burial, it's a family that decides. But whatever the decision, whatever date that you choose, you should know that the government will stand squarely behind you. And you have my deep sympathies about what has happened. It's a tragedy that this young man who did so much for our country, not just on the field of sports. I've heard about all the philanthropic work that he did, should end his life in this tragic manner. But the ways of the Lord are not the ways of man. So we cannot understand what he understands. All that we can do is to do our best to go through the experience.
Now, we hear from the president of the Ghana Football Association, Kurt Okreku.
Christian Achu was a very, very dedicated footballer who had 66 caps for the Black Stars. The height of his career was in the year 2015 when he scored the best goal of the tournament at the AFCON. He was also selected as a member of the team of the tournament. And most importantly, he was voted the best player of the tournament in the year 2015. Christian Achu served the Black Stars with all his heart. He served all national teams as and when he was called upon. And until his demise, he was still a member of our team, so long as the team selectors picked him. Beyond the field of play, Your Excellency, he was a philanthropist. His deeds and works are all over the place. And I think the world has spoken to all the good deeds that Christian Achu Trasam did to mankind. Your Excellency, the family is humbled to have been received by your good self, and we are ready to work closely with your good self to find a befitting resting place for our dear brother.
We talk about the President's Cup now, and the Ghana League Clubs Association. They have announced that the fixture between Kumasi Asante Kotoko and Accra House of Folk that will be happening on March 5 would also serve as the President's Cup for 2023. Chairman of the Ghana League Clubs Association, Kujo Fiano, was on Joy Sports Link with my colleague Nathaniel Ato, and he explained why they have chosen that fixture to honor the President.
President's Cup should serve as a precursor to the independence celebrations. So last year we played on the 3rd of March. That was a Friday in the evening at Accra Sports Stadium. And the old man was there to grace the occasion. So we wanted to repeat the same thing either in Accra or Kumasi. Now looking at the fixtures, we're having the Manchester Derby on Wednesday. You cannot play a competitive game within 48 hours. Now, if we should insist that House of Folk and Kotoko should play on Friday, they have the super class, that is the league, on the 5th. So, in consultation with the GFA, the two clubs, and the seat of government, we've decided that we should use the Super Clash as the President's Cup for this year. So on Sunday, the Super Clash between House of Folk and Kotoko will have the element of the President's Cup dovetailed into it. So at the end of 90 minutes, if the score should remain 0-0, the two clubs will get their 1 point each. Then we'll go into penalty kicks. At the end of the penalty kicks, the winner will then lift the President's Cup, 50,000 Ghana cedis for the winner and 30,000 Ghana cedis for the loser. So that we will not have to find another date to put together another super clash to honor the President. And this match is also coming just a day before the independence celebration. So it is still serving the purpose of becoming the precursor to the independence celebration. So that's what we put together. We've got the two clubs to buy into it. The GFA had given the approval, and that is what we're going to have on the 5th of March. So in as much as we're going to have the Super Clash serving as a league, it's also serving as the President's Cup.
Interesting. From the Ghana League Clubs Association. Now, let's do some athletics. And now, 2005 and 2008 100 meters record holder Asafa Paul, he's in Ghana, and he says his visit to the country is to inspire young athletes to be like him. He was welcomed at the Kotoka International Airport by the president of the Ghana Olympic Committee, Ben Nunu Mensah, and other dignitaries within the athletics governing body.
I'm happy to be here and to really share my experience, and to teach in whatever way I can, so you guys can live through me, and hopefully, I can be back here a lot more, and to share, everything, and to spend time with, my family here in Ghana. Well, first, it was a long flight, so, I need to get some rest, but I have, a long list of things that, I have to get done while I'm here. I have to meet a lot of people, and I'll be seeing a lot of the country, and as the week go on, you guys will see a lot of updates and, stuff that I'll be doing.
It's been on the table for, but for COVID, Asafa and Alicia would have been here much longer. What we're looking for is a sports icon, who can motivate our young. I mean, when you hear the story of Asafa, then you know that every kid in Bukom, every kid in Nima, every kid in most of our deprived area can also one day become somebody like Asafa Powell. So that's the whole story. Asafa is here to inspire every Ghanaian doing sports, every child on the street who wants to take our sports. He's here to inspire you. Asafa is here for everybody. Fortunately for us, Asafa is our in-law because Asafa is married to a Ghanaian. So, we're going to make the best use of him and make sure we get every bit of it. But remember, Asafa didn't pay all the bride price when he took Alisa away. So I'm sure guys will start demanding that money from him.
And this is our wrap up AM Sports here with me, Muftau Nabila Abla. We appreciate your company.
Esia is the Director for Policy Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation at the Ministry of Science, Environment and Technology. Lydia is worried about the environmental impact of the garbage that is dumped in the ocean.
There's also another report by the World Wildlife Foundation, which also indicates that averagely, an average person ingests into your system approximately 5 grams of plastics weekly. And to bring it home, the 5 grams of plastics can be likened to a credit card, the size of a credit card on the average every week. That's the quantity of plastics that we inject into our system. Because obviously the plastics have penetrated through our food chain. So you sit in Accra, you have your delicious fried rice and chicken and whatnot, and you think that, oh, I mean, the presentation is good, I cooked it well, there's nothing, but you have no idea the chemicals. Because of the ingestion of the plastics, we are having issues, or the effects of plastics is also being seen in terms of some human health issues that are confronting people. So the issue of obesity, the issue of fertility, people's, I mean, not having or having challenges to give birth because of the fact that the plastics are able to mutate the way the hormones are in our system and are able to interfere with the way the hormones operate.
The devastation that plastics are causing the fishing industry is far-reaching. Researchers have recently found alarming levels of plastics in the bellies of fishes, not in the ocean alone, but in Ghanaian lagoons too. Microplastics that end up in water bodies become even more difficult to manage because marine creatures ingest it.
Plastics being on the spawning grounds affects the life forms which the fishes lives on. Therefore, you may not have a lot of fish spawning in there, and therefore it affects the supply of fingerlings or other varieties to the ocean.
Professor Kofi Nyako is the country lead for Ocean Hub, an organization that's working to create an enabling environment for the integrated, challenge-led ocean governance research. Professor Nyako is sounding alarm bells on how the plastics and garbage in the ocean are affecting marine life and the general livelihood of fishes who depend on the ocean. Civil society organizations have been at the forefront of campaigns aimed at ridding the ocean of plastics and other garbage. One such organization is the Green Africa Youth Organization. Desmond Alunwa is co-founder of the Green Africa Youth Organization and the Africa Program Manager for the Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives.
And we hopefully we will pilot this the first quarter of this year, water ATMs, where you go in, you slot your coin. Depending on how much you slot in, the water comes for you, and then you bottle up your bottle, and then you go away. And then when it finishes, you get to the next station, and then you do the same thing. I think that this is simple, and nobody is going to be taken out of business. If you want, you can still keep the person who was carrying the water sit by the dispenser, and that is okay.
Well, thank you for staying with us on the AM show. And of course, we're dilating on our latest Hotline documentary, A Sea of Plastic, and what it's doing to us as we ingest all of these items, what they're doing to us health-wise, and the environmental consequences of the plastic waste that we see littered across the length and breadth of our country. Not just the city of Accra, which also brings to mind the whole bit about making Accra the cleanest city in Africa. How far along are we? I remember hearing from the sector minister, the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources, Cecilia Abnadapa, saying that, yes, we hadn't got there, but within a period of time we would get there, and money, logistics, and all of that. What has happened to all of that talk? Well, helping us get into that latest Hotline documentary, we have some guests lined up, but guess who's joining me in the studio? There's King Yellow from way back then. Should I call her Queen Yellow? Good morning, Mapitso.
Good morning, Benjamin. How are you?
I'm well. How about you?
I'm great, thank you.
You're doing some awesome work, eh?
Am I?
Yeah, you are.
Okay.
I've been getting some awesome raving reviews, but they would make you blush since your texture, you will blush. So I'm going to save them for after the show. And then I gave you the one from my mom the other day.
Yes, you did.
My own mom.
Oh, yeah. Benjamin's mom is in love with me. Yeah. Oh, Benjamin.
I hope you've been telling me mine when the girl them.
No, I don't. You see, I don't want to make you arrogant. I don't want to make you arrogant.
You don't want to make
the girl them, they've been sending me messages, but I'm like, oh, you people should relax.
You talk them, eh?
Should relax for him. This man is taken.
Hey, Dema.
Yeah.
That's well in the market. Anyway, let's get to more serious issues. Venan Sondo is a chartered environmentalist. Venan joins the conversation. Patrick Apoya is a wash expert. We also have Professor Kofi Nyako, country lead Ocean Hub, and Richard Kweju Nyako, who is with the JoyNews team that undertook this project, this latest Hotline documentary. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining the conversation. I'm just doing a sound check so I can be sure all of you can be heard.
Yes, thank you very much, Master.
I can hear you. Thank you.
All right. I'll start with you, Richard Kweju Nyako, just to give us a bit of a background to this latest documentary. What made us go out there and do this, and just give us what the major takeaways are from this latest Hotline documentary, Richard? Hello? Kwejunyako, if you can hear me. Oh, it appears Kwejunyako has left. I just wanted him to give us a bit of a background to this entire documentary, but we'll get him back for him to do that. In the meantime, I'll connect with Venon. Venon, if you can hear me, what do you make of this latest Hotline documentary? And what does it say about any progress or otherwise that we're making? But before you get to that, Kwejunyako, I don't know whether you got my question before the connection went off. I just wanted to find out what made us even go and do this, conduct this latest documentary, and what are the major takeaways from this documentary? Hello, did you hear me, Kwejunyako? Okay, it appears there may be a connectivity issue. Kwejunyako, can you hear me? If you can, just let me know so I proceed. All right, Venon. So like I put the question to you, what do you make of this latest documentary, especially as an environmentalist? What does it mean? And does it mean that whatever gains we may have made are being eroded, or the losses we've made are being worsened? What does all of this mean to you?
Well, I must say it's nothing new. It's something we've always talked about. And I was hoping that the later part of the documentary, you could see Madam Leader Edwa talking about the issues. I was hoping that she would be given the chance to speak about the effort that communities, the government, and diplomatic parties are putting in place to sort of address the situation. It's not changing, but then, you know, how do you expect it to change when the consumers don't have the right sort of choices? You know, because you have one set of choices that are polluting, we all know that, but the onus is on the policymakers that are actually doing a lot, especially with the upcoming extended polluter responsibility, which is probably going to take effect in a couple of years, led by the industry themselves, and the government also undertaking a circular economy action plan targeting plastics. So you may think a lot is not happening, but in the background there's a lot more that is going on, but it takes a while before you can sort of align the effort towards a just transition, which would lead to the reduction in plastic pollution. You can't ban plastics. You need to actually undertake a that transition is painful, but it has to kind of take its time and get the right parties aligned, get the policy in line, get the sort of incentives and disincentives aligned, and then you can actually get towards pathway towards circular plastics.
So there's quite a lot to be done. You say it's no surprise to you, but looking at the situation, especially when we were told that Accra would become the cleanest city, I mean, we may not get there within the shortest possible time, but does this show that, I mean, is there any plan? Does this show in any way that we're getting something right? Or does it just mean that we are exactly where we were and nothing basically no progress is being made?
Well, I'm a scientist, I speak with metrics. So, you know, in terms of volumes and tons and everything, and nobody really knows for sure how much plastic is imported into Ghana, how much plastic is produced in oceans every day. There's talk about 1.1 million tons of plastics every year, which is sort of produced by Ghana. Some say 1.3, some say it's actually even more, some say it's less. So to be honest, the matter seems to get a little bit of, you know, limelight now and then when it's washed up in the oceans. People talk about it and then nothing gets said again after a while. The whole advocacy is not consistent. And you would actually wonder who is going to actually lead this advocacy. Is it going to be the media? Is it going to be the government? Is it going to be policy? Who are those NGOs who will lead this transition in terms of advocating and actually making sure that people are aware about the choices that they can actually do themselves, kind of want to take themselves to lead towards a transition. So it is getting worse, yes, but there is a lot more that is going on in the background. Frantic efforts are going on in the background to address the situation across the civil community, across the government, across industry, and across diplomatic partners as well who are actually coming in to help. So
if efforts, just to interject, if efforts are that frantic, frantic implies there's a hubbub of activity, people are very excited about something and are moving to work towards, remedying a situation. I don't know whether frantic would be the word, because like you rightly said at the start of your submission, we've not made any progress. In fact, if anything at all, from your rhetoric, we have retrogressed.
Well, I will beg to disagree. I did not say we have retrogressed, and I did not say we have made a lot of effort.
No, those are my words, but I'm saying that with what you've said, and then with saying frantic, I do not think there's a correlation.
Well, that is my opinion. From where I sit, from where I see the conversations going on, from where I hear conversation, and from what I take part in, I believe every week or every 2 weeks there is a seminar, there is a workshop, a webinar where I'm about to talk about something. There are people planning stuff, policy across the World Bank, across the GRIBE, across the NPAP, across civil society, across the World Economic Forum. There is just so much buzz, but then I'm not sure if that actually is translated to action. But of course, it's a problem and it takes time. It's going to transition eventually. It's going to wait its time, but I think we really need to actually give the discourse due justice in terms of talking about the issues that are actually going on and actually linking them to the effort that's actually on the ground and letting people see especially where they can actually take part and be part of the narrative.
Hold for me, Vernon. Let me bring in Patrick Apoya, a WASH expert. Patrick, for you, what do you make of this latest Hotline documentary, A Sea of Plastic? Does it resonate with what you know already from the system? And does it point to a worsening of the problem or a bettering of the issue we're dealing with in terms of plastic?
Thank you very much. Yes, it is something we may have known in the past, but I think the documentary has brought in some dimensions that actually paint a more gloomy picture than what we have been thinking. And of course, a lot of people are aware about the problem of plastic and the effects on our oceans and even on our environment. But just how that can be viewed in terms of its real manifestation, I think that is what this documentary has brought to bear. And to make it very live, to just paint a very live picture of the problem and how serious the problem is staring at us. And for me, it just makes me to reflect that then what tangible achievement have we actually made all these years talking about plastic? It's not as if it's a new thing that we are just hearing about. But if it is a new thing, we are programming a whole, there are two ministries that are programming around plastic. That's the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources in its routine waste management drive. And then we have the Ministry of Environment that has a huge program on plastic management and elimination. But the problem just still appears to be untouched. And I can attribute this to the fact that the government or the policymakers are actually torn between this extreme programmatic ideas of civil society and environmentalists on one hand, who are calling for an outright ban on plastic, and then the plastic advocacy, which is a huge lobby group involving the manufacturers and heavy traders in plastics, who quickly oppose other ideas that recycling, it creates jobs, the National Action Plan initiative that was actually launched by the big plastic manufacturers, trying to paint a public picture that there is a plan to deal with the plastic menace by recycling. And yet, when you put everything together, we are saying less than 2% of our plastics are being recycled, not more than 10% of whatever we generate is even managed. And when you think about it, that plastics, because of their very nature, are easily swept into our ocean by water and by wind, we should not have been surprised about what is happening. But what is surprising is actually what we are unable to do. Even though we have been singing that we will do, we will do, we will do. Either the state itself is confused and torn in between what exactly to do, or civil society and environmental lobbies are not punchy enough to look at what kinds of ban or which plastics pose the biggest problem, and that always points at the one-use plastic that should be considered for banning, or the private lobby that is promoting the plastics or trading in plastics are strong in the lobby to the extent that they are able to slow down any state intervention that point to actually banning them. But we have reached a stage where we should take a very bold step in saying that, look, we are not saying ban all plastic. One-use plastics, which constitute the majority of the menace, let's take a look at it. That is what we are just stuck in and unable to take a decision. And for me, this documentary has come timely. It exposes three things: the weakness of the state in actually dealing with the problem and not knowing what to do about it. It's like we have given up, even though we continue to talk. Secondly, it also questions the effectiveness of the civil society lobby, and it also advocacy, and it also tells us that those who are behind, let us do this, let us do that, we can't ban, they appear to be winning the day. We just don't feel how serious the problem is. And for me, I give thumbs up to this documentary, and that it has come timely.
Now, you spoke about a two-headed problem, or a problem with two different angles. It is either government doesn't know what to do and is not doing that, or the institutions that are supposed to target and ban a select group of plastic products like single-use plastics are not doing that. I, for example, so typically when I go and purchase an item, if they don't weigh too much, instead of taking them, you would notice that, let's say you go to the nearest store, you buy one thing, you get plastic. You buy another thing, plastic. So you've bought bottled water, you get, apart from the plastic for the bottled water, you get a bag to carry it in. You buy 3 or 4 different items, likely you're getting 3 or 4 different plastic. And people are carrying them when you could use just one and maybe reuse these. That would be on the educational front, which we've not done enough of, where we could have the NCCE and other groups also come in. But where do you think the problem really lies? Does it lie at the doorstep of government, especially when the commitment to make Accra the cleaner city has been on the radar for a long time? Or is it the institutions to target and ban specific plastic products that are not getting this right? Which is it?
For me, it is everybody's responsibility, but ultimately, the onus lies on government. Because when we have interest groups who are divided on how to proceed, and when you have communities who are now who have been swamped by strong marketing drives, and our lives are now tied to the plastic, that there's just nothing you can do with that plastic. Then it is government that has to be very decisive in bringing all the data together, bringing all the evidence together, and looking at what is in the best interest of the national, of the public, and then making sure that those measures are actually put in place and enforced. But if government is also now torn in between the two opposing extremes and not very decisive on how it wants to proceed with its plastic program, then I would say it is a government failure. Having said that, I also want to recognize the efforts that the Minister of Environment is putting in place. The Minister of Sanitation and Water Resources are putting in place, but they are just not enough. They are not backed by the funding that is required. We know we are in a national crisis, but even before we got to this crisis, in terms of our financial situation of our economy, the Minister of Sanitation and Water Resources was really never funded the way you will assume a city that or a country that wants institute to be the best or the cleanest city in Africa should be funded. It was just like it was business as usual, and you could see the ministry had a very clear program, but there was nothing to back those actions to see the impact that government wanted to see in the area of sanitation. So that's why I think ultimately government has to take the blame. But when I say government, it goes beyond just the frontline agencies that are mandated to deal with the problem. It's actually up to the cabinet level, up to the finance level, who ultimately decide what budget you get and what you don't get.
Let me also bring in Dr. Kwabena Pokofu. He is Executive Director Environmental Protection Agency. And of course, they play a crucial role in all of this. Dr. Kokofu, thank you for joining the conversation.
Thank you very much, my brother.
It's really good to have you. I don't know whether you've seen snippets of this latest Hotline documentary of ours, A Sea of Plastic, that we've put forth, but it paints the picture once more of the menace of plastic waste all over the length and breadth of our capital city, and especially concentrated in some of the Ga areas and among other places in Accra, and also beyond the capital. But what do you see in terms of a trend? Is anything getting better? Are we doing enough to stem the tide of plastic waste in Ghana and in the capital?
Well, good morning to your cherished viewers and listeners. I must congratulate those who put up the documentary. I haven't seen it yet, but then it is also obvious that when it comes to the issue of plastic pollution, and any observatory could imagine the level of the menace. It's unfortunate though, but it has been a systemic failure in the system for both institutions and the citizenry. However, it is not as if nothing is being done. Just this morning, I'm going to the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology, where the Sector Minister, Dr. Kokofu, jointly we're going to launch the Climate Change Week. And on the agenda is this plastic waste management policy that the ministry has put together. And very soon will be launched to lead the fight against the pollution of plastic waste in the system. Over the years, about 2 years back, there have been consultations, stakeholders and all that. Those who are doing the recycling, those of us who are the end users, the producers, and the retailers or the marketeers of these plastic, the various levels of plastic. By and large, we are encouraging the reuse of all resources, of all products, including plastic. And as you rightly put up, you get somebody goes out there to shop, and every single item, there is an issuance of plastic bag. And so you can see the level of contribution by both end users and the retailers or those who are using it for their products and commodities. Here we are asking, and we're going to enforce that fully, that the single use of plastic, particularly the under 20 microns, those lighter ones that flies all around the place, may or necessarily have to be banned. I'm not certain yet what the minister that may be, but it is possible. Looking at the trend, we may necessarily have to stop the production of it and then the use of it. So then we can have people to understand and to appreciate the fact that you can reuse and reuse and reuse plastic bags. Those bottles that you use for water and other liquid products, they can easily be picked up, or they can easily be reused or recycled by the facilities that we have available on our hands. Having said all these things, the citizenry have greater responsibility in order to keep whatever objectives the policy that is going to be launched will have to. Particularly at the Environmental Protection Agency, we've been teaching and we've been asking people to practice the waste segregation concept, where plastic will be separated from bottles, from other waste materials, so that the waste managers can easily pick them up, send them to the facilities that are required to do the recycling, and it makes it much more easier and less costly for the recyclers and all that. So I'm happy with the conversation. It is drawing the national cycle up. It is bringing to us, all of us, the menace on hand and the solution to that, so that we can all be part of the solution. Since we are part of the problem, we are part of the challenge.
All of us ought to get involved. We're all involved because we're all part of the problem. But I'd like to find, so some very interesting points you make. I've forgotten whether it was Patrick Apoya who made the point that, yes, single-use plastic, at least there must be some category that ought to be banned. If you look at what we call a tuomosum, the very small ones, so when you buy a bottle of water, the ones that are used, they are very light and you use them only once and you have to discard of them. They end up, in our landfills, some end up in other places, and it's very problematic. But some have also made mention of the cost-benefit analysis. If we ban those single-use plastic bits, others will also say that will lead to less production for those who are into that industry. What is the cost-benefit analysis? And I wanted to find out. I've been in jurisdictions where they use jute bags, for example, so you can use it time and again. In fact, you can use it for a whole year or more. It's the same thing. I don't know what pertains in South Africa. I'll have Mapitso share with us. But what is your take on that? What are the alternatives that we can use instead of plastic?
Let me dwell on the single-use and the possible ban. The under 20 microns are all over the place. I mean, they constitute the most eyesore. And because they are lighter, the wind can carry them all around, and then the spread you're talking about. So it's like redistribution of waste, plastic waste all around by nature, if human activities are even cancelled out. So the issue of banning or not banning, economic considerations have gone through. We are all aware that manufacturers are in business. They've invested that much. They've employed people. So the cost-benefit analysis is there to see. But, and the very big but, when it comes to environmental management and protection, the concept is simple. It's a polluter fee concept. So if the producers are prepared to pay the commercial value of the waste that is going to be generated or the waste that is being generated in order to get them off the street, we have no problem at all. That will be another revenue generation. However, they complain of paying the full cost, and the ability to pay is simply not there. If it is not, then for them, the cost-benefit analysis will be to stop that production. I mean, we are not talking about production of plastics in totality, no. The identified nuisance one. Then if the cost-benefit analysis to them, producing and then paying the commercial cost of environmentally managing them, then that would be a very good thing. It would be a very, very... and that is what's happening everywhere. I mean, the other jurisdictions where the stronger economies, they haven't stopped producing plastics in any form, no, but they are able to contain, they are able to pay the commercial cost for the discarding, management, handling of the waste. So that is set aside. The other suggestion of the
jute bags.
Jute bags. Yeah, the options are all available. We are producing paper bags. Some people are using paper bags, and they are biodegradable, and that is the best one to go. So if there is an interest in the production, mass production of jute bags, so we will permit such a venture, and then we go through. I must also say that we do have biodegradable plastics bags in the system. Indonesia is in the lead, and they use cassava to produce these plastics. So the technology intervention is key in this aspect. How do we get our manufacturers to branch into these high technological solutions?
that will keep them in business and at the same time dealing with the environmental pollution. So it's a package. It's a menu of solutions. That is why I talked about a policy statement that the minister will soon launch for the nation to feed into. Yeah.
I'll be coming back to you on that point, in fact, especially as climate change, flooding and everything, because we know that when this plastic gets choked in our gutters, then you know what happens when the rains hit. But even before we go there, I want to pose this question to all of you in terms of finding solutions to the problem. There's also the bit, apart from biodegradable plastic, apart from the jute bags, apart from the paper bags, there's also water vending machines, popularly known as water ATMs. So you can locate them in many different places. They are self-contained. You get automated water. You put a coin, depending on what you want, in there. You get the water, you drink, and then there's a way of, moving on with whatever you have used, be it plastic or whatever. And those likely would be biodegradable. You can use your mobile money and all of that to sort it out. Have we got to that point where we should have many more water vending machines or water ATMs to tackle this problem? I'll start with you, Venon Sonda. In fact, this question I'm posing to all of you, so I'd have all of you give your reflections on it, including other solutions you would like to proffer. I'll start with you, Venom.
I think, personally, solutions like that are welcome, but it's probably just a little drop in the ocean, because it's great to have water vending machines, but the question is, how accessible is that going to be to the masses?
So make it accessible. When people go out, it should be the water vending machines they are using. For what they will consume at home, people can get whatever. But once they go out, no one should be using plastic purchasing outside. It should be with these ATMs.
Yeah, great. But then you have the issue of power, right? How are they going to be powered? Are they going to be manually powered? Are they going to have solar power solutions for it? And how are you going to ensure that the masses have affordable water bottles? All I'm trying to say is solutions are great. There are many solutions out there. For water bottles, for replacing food packaging, for replacing we even use plastic toothpicks and all that stuff. There is a great opportunity for all sorts of solutions. But the question is understanding which solution is most viable and where. Of course, as I keep saying, it's a transition. It's a gradual and just transition towards making sure that everybody has a choice that is affordable in terms of playing their part in reducing pollution. So the water vending machines is a very great idea, a very great solution. Welcome to the narrative, and I hope that it does proliferate to every part of Ghana so that everyone can use it.
Patrick, what's your take?
It's a welcome solution. Unfortunately, that solution is targeting the group of plastics. There are also one-use plastics, but there are also the group of plastics that are easily recycled, that are in high demand now, and that has a high value when you pelletize them. So, and that is the sachet, the water sachet. That particular group of plastics are things that if we invest in them, it is a group that you can actually valorize and add value to the economy. That's the ones that you see the trucks packing all the time. So long as it is not dirty, the value is very high. People actually sell them. The ones that that ATM machine will not target are the very ones that our EPA colleague talked about. Those that fly around, the black plastics that the recyclable value is so low that nobody is interested in them, and they're the ones that are easily blown by the wind, and they're those that the ATM machine will not be able to target. And also the question of the portability. The strength of sachet water is the portability. Whether you are in a market street, whether you are in a car, anywhere you are, that you just you stretch your hand like this and you have it. It will take a long time for ATM to catch up with that level of portability. that the packaged water actually offers now. Besides that, I think definitely it's a good solution, and it will add value to our fight against the plastics.
Come back to you. Let's go to Coligone, and Michael Ashali is there for us. Michael, what do you have for us? Michael?
Very close to Jamestown. This space is very important for the conversation that we are having on plastics in the ocean. This Poly Lagoon here is exactly where
Okay, we'll go back to Michael Ashali later on. But Benjamin, we're discussing like the rules and regulations. For example, in South Africa, you have to buy plastic. So if you're going to the supermarket, you buy plastic for equivalent of, let's say, 50 pesos or like 1 CD. And so that compels people when they're shopping to remember their plastic bags from home. You understand? But we also have some other certain...
Oh, so if you go to a store and you don't have any, you're going to have to buy it.
You have to buy it, right? And obviously you don't want to carry your groceries just in the basket. You'll be compelled to buy, but every time you think about it, okay, so when I'm going grocery shopping, I'd rather take my plastic bags that are at home so that I can reuse them. So you find people reusing their plastics. That's number one. The second one is that would have like some sort of paper bags. We'll talk about this later, but let's go back.
Just quickly, the cost there isn't inhibitive. In some instances, they would make the plastic much more expensive, so that if you have to buy it at the pay point where you are making the purchases, you would feel it more. Let's say it's very small plastic and you're buying it for like 5 CDs. You will not forget the plastic bag that you have at home. But if it's like 50 pesos, people will still...
No, even 1 CD is a lot, because you're thinking about how many 1 CDs have I spent. So you're at home and you're thinking that I have like 100 CDs worth of plastic bags. That's a lot of money if you're looking at someone who is earning what's like 350 Ghana cedis. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So it compels them to actually reuse their plastics. And there's been some couple of campaigns. We'll get into that. And let's go back to Michael Ashali. Michael?
In the ocean. This Kole Lagoon over the years have brought, unfortunately, more plastic than even wastewater to the ocean. This is the exact spot where the lagoon interacts with the vast ocean. But all the waste, where does it end up in? Right here in the ocean. And many a times, the sea, with its own mechanisms, regurgitates that waste back onto the seashore. And you can see from how it looks right now that the sea is just made up of sand and a lot more plastic. Plastic to cotton, to ropes from some of the fishermen here. And then you can see quite a number of items, even metals sometimes, on the seashore here. But we're having this conversation today because we want to find a lasting solution to plastic in the ocean. How do we stop plastic from getting back into the ocean? Back here on the Kole Beach, there are a group of people who are doing something quite important, trying to contribute their quota to getting plastic off the beach when the sea is done regurgitating them. But they'll paint a very good picture of what exactly has been happening here. I'll ask them how long they have been working here as well. It's quite a tough job trying to get the plastic out of this fine sand here. In Papa join me here. It must say few. Well, me na kashing in chumo in Shona. Mabiogbe fetacho boten.
Achobe kweku se.
Okay. Kweku fine e wo nuchumo ne afie boy ne no bon femo.
Oh, so many years. Almost 10 to 12 years kese no obeji chumo what one obese what one kese be ka ji wo kete mam ka ye mi awon ka ga we ba bi e si bi eji important e ya ga do e fire bi e o da be fe bi e wo e bi e.
So Kweku Esen, he tells me his name, has been working here for the past 8 years on this beach alone. he says that although he's been moved around, this is the exact station where he's been working for a very long time. And the reason being that the waste generated on this beach alone is enormous. The reason for which he's been stationed here. Mr. Asian, my people are catching nutriment here to your time because me now catching rubber pea, plastic pea, J. If I say sure now, no change 8 years ago, but 10 nutriment your time.
No me nutriment fa, why you want to 30 loco? She me go me boy ya what me pi pa. She still what you know she no me do fa fe neke what you want when no etofa. She can you money wona na ga do a problem I ga do a je na me ga wo gota me ga gbe no elu of na bu can be o ga ba show me show le small dirty I get you out what you want ga jo be ya any last one yo una what take your wire.
So, Kweku tells me that when it rains, the situation on the beach gets worse because the Korle Lagoon brings with it a lot of filth. And he says that for what he knows, from what he's observed over the last 8 years, is when it rains, people dump their plastic waste, be it whatever waste that they have, into water bodies, which then collects into the Korle Lagoon and then comes into the ocean. Again, he tells me that in the past 8 years, when he started this job, it was quite a tougher job to do, trying to walk through this plastic here, or this waste that had gathered on the beach here. But he tells me, with his hard-working self and many other people you can see in your shot right now, they have managed to, work hard around it to bring down the volumes. But he's not the only one who's been working here on this particular beach. Quite a number of people you can see. There's interest in plastic waste. For some people, they get to resell them, recycle, reuse them. And in that process of doing that, you get people who are interested in buying it. So the collection does not end here. For those that can be reused, for those that can be sold back onto the market, that is done. And you can see that groups of there are heaps of plastic, be it in whatever form, sometimes even metal that are being collected and are waiting to be shipped off to some other places. There's a lot of interest in plastic waste now. However, not many people know how to properly deal with them. Many of them just dump them like Kweku Asian here told me it is done. Let me talk to one more of Kweku Asian's team and how they've been dealing with this. If you observe that there are many more women cleaning the beach than men, it happens to be the case along the entire stretch of the beach here in the Greater Accra region. Mabia keshe kwekwesen kema keshe etunchumo afitomo 8 years. Ni bohwe feta choboten.
Gladys Botwe.
Okay. Gladys, o fine e wo bohame ni afi enye no tunu ye bia.
Nakano wo ye bia tumo 8 years ni.
8 years.
Fine.
E wo no jenhye no chumo tenu me ya leten.
Me wo jenhye chumo no me apia wo fine. Agwen ba share ko en te pay delay wo kan bi. Chief men say wo ye me want to know what in the jam ye je ko we. Aka okatu want to know.
What about we boni shikana ha nye sane shi. No jenhye no maybe ene dwen no oton ke mageshe fa apo.
Ele po no me fa apo ne asenso. Me ko bote bi ne po ko ba oboshinti. Dwen po enche na e ata o mintin. Ene wona le ko ene me le je le ko kura kan awo. Chief men say wo ye no.
So quick translation there. Gladys here tells me she's also been working as part of those who clean the beach for the past 8 years. However, when she started, she notes remarkably that the level of waste on this particular beach was to her thigh. So the bridge between her waist and her thigh. That's exactly where it was here, to demonstrate it. She meaning your chuo poten ye bien, meaning your feel.
What's that?
Ne law maybe rubber pe alone ne law that they pay.
Rubber that will joy them. Okay. And shall be better rubber gin bad. Dress only ba. Okay.
E wo tefeteni joy ba insure me insure un joke ba beach no.
Can you more in the king? ni agboshi dwe mo ke dwe awo mbo na awo dwe ke ni fe e ba nso na ko ke dwe wo gota mo ke ba no e ba ko le na fe e ba bu awo no be awo ntu me wo ntu o kan bo ne no be san e ba ye bi kan bo ne no be wo fe wo tu fa aga dwe ni ba to mo ko ni ne ngbe na kan dwe jo fe ba bu ash ke ko le un ke di lo ke di.
So Gladys says that, just as Asian said, that the Korle Lagoon is one of the major contributors of the waste that you see on the beaches that she works with. So people dump theirs into the lagoon, which eventually also ends up in the ocean, then finally regurgitated back to the beach site here. Gladys, oh, no more kema kashi, nuchumom, menkuma, ese kema shi menkuma pa, menkuma fe, menkuma ete, menkuma boy kenibi come. Ni shika hona ke hanya ho me echi kenibi come. Ote, I mean nuchuma te ya leten.
To be na kani. Oya ga shi ni boni PS cho wo menkuma pa. Ka mi ngono na pay wo kwen bede ne ni ba be ne pocho wo ho bi. Yes, no woni me un etrashia. Wo ifa wa lente. She pay no ewo. E ba o ya no mo yegbomo. Jele spon wewa no na ba pay e ko na ba pay na ba ga shi ni o pay po ba no to everything man le no ku ba chu.
So Gladys finally tells me that when they started 8 years ago, there were quite a number. ASN gave me 30 people. However, over the years, that number has reduced drastically because of issues with remuneration. That is how much they are paid to work here. Although that is not enough, sometimes they have to deal with undue delays in the payment of their monies to them.
No
ni wonye ke ba tuni o mi na ba nya fe ye anya
ana wo ni bi na ke tuni to mo ball ke ni bi ke re ke block ni bi ne won ta wo fin
mi na ji me hu wo gloves
ke gloves fe won ta wo fin no okay tuni fe for.
So Gladys here tells me that if they get some help, okay.
So what ball ni ke atri bre na ke dry awo e ke fe for e go no ko buash ne ke mo no ni bo ne aduma jan watchu e say ba ko shika wo container ka wo lo e ka wu e ke face bu kan awo.
So Gladys tells me that the heap that you see in your shot right now is what they've managed to do just for today. However, they would need the assistance of government and the authorities to give them a proper waste bin that they can collect this into. Other than that, when it rains, that will be an effort in futility to try and clean the beach. This will all end back in the ocean. But she says that they need quite a lot more than that. They need their monies also paid on time, which will serve as motivation to them. Again, they'll need some other equipment to do the work that they do. They need rakes, they need gloves, and again, they need protection whilst they are working on the beach. It's a long conversation to having plastics totally eradicated from the beaches along Ghana's borders. But the conversation starts right here on trying to get people to stop dumping their waste in the ocean. It dots and lines the ocean floor and it's becoming a worrying trend. But as you can see, some people are working hard to get this menace to stop. We'll be talking to some more people along the beach today, finding out their own solution, their own experience with waste and plastics that have entered the ocean. For JoyNews, Michael Ashale.
That's Michael Ashale. They're giving us some updates or what is happening on the beach. And I think what they're doing is very, very commendable. The likes of Gladys and Ernest is very commendable. But some of the things that we should also look at is like campaigns and bringing in some of like your celebrities, your favorite celebrities, to do some campaigns for this plastic waste. Benjamin, would you like to bring in our guests?
And yes, right before we went to that area interacting with Papani Ashale, we're interacting with you, our guests, on what the way forward is, what the solutions are. I know you have to take leave of us, Dr. Kokofu, so I'd like to find out from you, apart from the jute bags and others, the water ATMs, Do they fit into the solutions that you see? The ban on single-use plastics is also there. And then in terms of climate change, what is happening to us? This plastic gets lodged in certain places, waterways, gutters, major, points where water should be able to leave. And then when the rains come, and the rains will come soon, we face flooding issues. What is the way forward, Doc?
Yes, the way forward is simple. Attitudinal change. Since individuals do not keep these waste plastics in their bedroom and in their sitting room, it is also important that they do not discard them on the open or in the open, the environment. What is around us is what is sustaining us as a people. I mean, in our living standards and all that. And it defines what is in us as a people, whether we adhere to sanitary conditions and all manner of things. So if you cannot keep the plastic waste on your bed, if you cannot keep it in your bedroom, please don't throw it out there. It's as simple as anything. Why would people want to use these plastics and instead of dealing with them hygienically, instead of dealing with them as any other thing, they will want to throw it out there. So attitudinal change is one of the key. And then institutional.
But very quickly, Doc, how do we bring about the attitudinal change? I was mentioning, for example, can we rope in the NCC? Can we have drives across the country? Can we have ads made, cartoons and others, animation and stuff like that? What do we do? The people will not just all of a sudden become sensitized to the issue.
Yeah, we are already doing, and you've been doing. This morning, you've devoted precious time to discuss these things. Not only with the voice, but with the visibility, the pictures and all that. It's part of the awareness creation. It's part of reaching out to the people. All we need to do is to intensify. The media is always the greatest partner in most of these things, particularly the broadcast. So you have freely given your resources to help us reach out to the people. It is for the people to catch up with whatever we're doing and whatever we're saying. I was going to say, beyond the awareness creation and the education, or preaching against attitude, we're going to back it with the full force of the law, where institutions like my own, we strengthen the arms of the law, and then get people panicked. But the point is, are you going to do it? You're going to send Kofi Manu who lifted some few plastics on the street. Are you going to jail him? Are you going to fine him? What are you going to do? We are working out all these things and find space in the policies that we've drafted for the public consumption and implementation. Going forward, it is also very important that the polluter pays principle is made to come to bear fully. So those manufacturers will then be called upon to pay fully commercially what it takes to manage these plastics, wayward plastics that has become so much. I wanted to have a bite on the earlier question you asked all of us, the panel. I mean, finding solutions. You talked about the possibility of water vendors being displayed or put at vantage points. I think that was the question, isn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yes, my take, if I'm going to be blunt on this, it's not going to work here, now. Maybe in future. But for now, we are in the middle of a mess where simple do's and the don'ts, people doesn't want to listen. So you can imagine, I'm going to say my holy village at Amakrum, Medane in the Tepa district, and I'm in a car from Kumasi, and I feel like drinking water. Then I have got to get down and go look for vending machine and all those matters. And again, the commerciality of it is not going to be a Father Christmas kind of thing. This idea could be sold to entrepreneurs who will weigh the pros and the cons, the commercials of it, and then see if it is worth investing in. And I can assure you, no investor will want to go there. At night, you get people vandalizing these machines for absolutely nothing. So the emphasis and our strength must be on don't use this and discard it away anyhow, anywhere. You do so, we catch you, or the law catches up on you, you'll be punished. Then a manufacturer, in the policy, you've identified all the manufacturers, and they'll be given code. So whatever you manufacture, your unique code will be on the product. So we find your product discarded out there, and you are responsible for cleaning up the system. So I didn't want to go much in details before the whole thing is launched, but I can assure you it is to be with the people to get solutions to this. You can put up all those policies. You can be arresting people left and right. But then people must understand that why wouldn't people go to Kempinski and litter all around with plastic or with used bags? Why would people working at multimedia, after drinking your water, after purchasing your whatever product out there, finishing using it, why don't you throw it all around? You can't do, because the system there is such that you cannot do. But why various communities, people simply want to do that?
Right.
The responsibility on the part of the citizenry. So we must situate this as ourselves and then ask ourselves questions. Why is it that it is not done here in Accra? It is not done in a particular area, but it is done in other areas. Why? Yeah. So by and large, I'm confident. I have confidence that we can surmount this challenge now that we have the media fully backing and fully on board. We are all now worried about. We do appreciate the enormity of the challenge. Putting our hands on the deck. Taking decisions, we will bite. Surely, we will have to bite. We have no option, because we failed the nation over the years, and that one I do admit. So going forward, we have got to be up and going, but then we expect the citizenry to come halfway for that, so that monitoring and implementation of policy will be smoother and will not generate any acrimony where we have got to confronting one another, simply because we don't want to deliver.
Doc, we're so grateful for your time with us. Dr. Kwabena Kokofu is Executive Director of the EPA, and he was gracious enough to give us some of his time this morning, sharing his thoughts on the matter. In fact, on the back of what Doc was saying, we have a message coming through. So this one from Seth Owusukumi. Seth Owusukumi says, the underlying factor is poverty. You cannot clean up a city where 70% of the occupants live on the street. That is what he alleges. He says if we were to live in Choco, we would do same. But if we were to move to the airport residential area, we wouldn't litter. That's what he says. Let's tackle poverty, and most of our problems will be solved by default. That is what he is saying. There's also this one that says, we need the town council back to do this job. Let me come now to Professor Kofi Nyarko, country lead for Ocean Hub. Prof, thank you for staying with us. We've had to go around a bit, but for you, on the back of this conversation we're having, we know what the problem is. What, for you, are the solutions? Are we tackling the problem the right way?
To your listeners, just before I go into your question, I just want to give you just a brief about the One Ocean Hub. The One Ocean Hub is a research program, a research for development program that is working to promote fair and inclusive decision-making for a healthy ocean where people can flourish. And we're working in 5 different countries. We have the lead in UK, Ghana, South Africa, Namibia, and the Pacific Islands. In Ghana, it's our main aim. Our main aim is to restore the small pelagic fisheries, where you have the artisanal fishermen involved. And we know the artisanal fishermen are highly poor. So plastics becomes an important issue because you find out that about 80% of the marine litter are all plastics. And how does it affect the livelihoods of the fishermen? So maybe we'll come into that. Well, I would prefer 5 main things that we should look at. We should rethink. We should also reduce. We should rethink whether plastics or some plastics are important. What's the use of straw? We keep on seeing people using straw. Straw has no any other use apart from sipping. What's the use? So we should rethink about the kind of plastics that we use, and also reduce the amount of plastics that we use within the country. Aside reducing, we also have to look at reuse, because in Europe, when you go to the shop, you pay €1 for a plastic bag. Definitely the following time, you don't want to pay another €1 for a plastic bag. You would definitely carry the plastic bag in your pocket and reuse. And Ghanaians, I don't think we have the attitude of reusing. We just want to use it once and throw it away. Then also the recycling bit. It's one important thing, because if the sachet water, you buy a sachet water and they add a pesewa to it, or 3 pesewas or 5 pesewas to it, after taking the sachet water, you send the sachet water back to the vendor or a known place, they'll give you your 5 pesewas back. At least people would definitely put the sachet water. As students, we did that in Europe. You know, when we buy our water, our Fanta and our Coke, we put the container, our beer, we put the containers back and send it to the shop and get our refund. The other point is redesign. That means we should look at how best we can use the plastic for other, or we can reuse the plastic for other uses, probably trying to get petroleum out of it or whatever it is. And this points to the fact that we should look at serious material engineering and promoting courses of material engineering in our universities.
So those are the points you're making. Now, since we're wrapping up the conversation, I'd like to find out from you, from the governmental end of things, and maybe from the end of institutions like yours, NGOs, among others. Have we lived up to expectation? What more would you like to see? When we spoke to Dr. Kokofu, he made mention of the fact that even today, the sector minister was launching a climate change week, among others. But have we done enough, especially knowing, as a country, that Accra floods every year, without fail?
Well, in terms of flooding, I think there are a lot of things that we need to look at in terms of the drainage issue. But one important, let's look at a sector of people within our economy that at least are highly impacted by plastics, especially our fisher folks. You know, we're talking about alternative livelihoods or supplementary livelihoods for the fisher folks. And you go to the beaches, they are littered with plastics. And one important use of the beach is for tourism, where most fisher folks also go there, at least as, how do I put it? Guards, or probably to guard people when they are swimming, and also to sell things. But if the beach is littered with plastics, how would people come in there for them to get other sources of income during their lean season? The other point is when they go to fish, especially those who use the beach scene. Now, they harvest more plastics than the fish, because you have the fish, the plastics closer to the coastal area or the near shore. So they harvest more plastics than fish. Putting in all this effort, casting your net, spending the whole day, and harvesting more plastics than the fish that you need to sell in order to get other source of income for other things. Yeah, then from this point of view, where does the plastic come from? Who regulates the plastics? Who regulates the importation of plastics? Then which implies that the government has not lived up to, and the institutions that are responsible have not lived up to expectation. Because this EPA, Ministry of Environment, they know the effects of plastics in terms of climate change. When people are disposing out refuse, they burn the emission of greenhouse gases. That also affects our environment. Now, if they know all these things and they are not able to put their feet down in order to stop the use of some of these plastics, then I think from my point of view, they have failed. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Prof, for having joined the conversation. We're grateful for the insight that you've shared. Professor Kofi Nyarko is country lead, Ocean Hub. Let me come now to Patrick Apoya for your final thoughts on this. What is the way forward? Well, we'll wrap with Venan Sondo. Venan, over to you.
Thank you very much. I believe there is a slow progress towards the transition. And that is why one of the best solutions being advocated by not just the government of Ghana, but by many other institutions, including the African Circular Economy Network, is a circular economy approach, which, as Professor Nyarko was saying, basically looking at not just banning plastic, but understanding the various levels of the circular economy, how we can actually start by redesigning our whole sort of solutions, how we can educate people to reuse, to repurpose. Before you recycle, we can't recycle ourselves out of the mess. It's a whole congregation of solutions that need to be put in place. And that is why the process seems to be a little bit slow. So advocacy, I'm glad the media is coming on board. The media has always shown a lot of support, but I think the time has come for the media to actually make it a lot more prominent across the various channels, to people to understand not just the impact of plastics, but how they can play their part and link them to the possible solutions and alternatives that they can use to maybe avoid buying a water sachet, or avoid buying a styrofoam pack for food, or avoid using a plastic straw. So it's a whole list of solutions that, if they all come together with the right sort of advocacy, with the right sort of channels to kind of put through the message, with the right kind of policy, it could actually start bearing some fruit. But you can see the mess. It's obvious. You want to think that there is nothing being done, but I bet you there are a lot of actors out there who are actually doing a lot, and actually for free at times, volunteering to make sure that the problem can be addressed. So I'm glad that I wouldn't want to kind of thank the media for highlighting the issue, but I think a lot more needs to be done. And a lot more needs to be done by the media to educate the masses about some of the solutions and the policy mechanisms that are being put in place by the various actors to make sure that the solution is addressed. If they can understand what is going on, if they can see the process, I think they'll be able to appreciate that a lot of effort is going in the background, although not actually being seen. That will actually help calm down the anxiety, I would say.
Mr. Sondo, thank you so much for having joined the conversation. Venan Sondo is a chartered environmentalist. We also had Professor Kofi Nyako, country lead, Ocean Hub, Dr. Kwabena Kukofu, executive director of the Environmental Protection Agency. And we also had joining the conversation Professor Kofi Nyako and also our very own Richard Kwejo Nyako. We couldn't really connect to him, but he actually led us as we undertook this latest Hotline documentary, A Sea of Plastic. Together, we can solve the problem, not apart, not segregated, not separated. We're all involved, and that is how we get to resolve the issue. Mapitso, quite a conversation. Yeah. And just to wrap the conversation, you spoke of the South African endeavor and how you're using different methods. But is it this topical? Is it this prominent in South Africa as well in terms of managing plastic waste? Is it a menace? Let me put it.
It's not a menace. Because of some of the measures they've put in, they also have like initiatives like Plastic SA, and the main thing with Plastic SA is to deal with plastic waste. They'll turn out campaigns like reduce, reuse, recycle. So this is something that's been introduced.
So that's one thing you're getting right, the campaigns.
Yes, the campaigns. And this is something that was introduced when you were young. This is something that's introduced in school. So that they'll tell you that, okay, there are 3 dustbins. One is for plastic, one is for a bottle, and another one is for like other waste, like food or something like that. So from a young age, that, okay, I shouldn't litter. You understand? I shouldn't litter. Okay, I have to. If
I'm going to put my waste in,
I have to put it in the right dustbin, glass here, and you get rewarded for that. So because of that, when you're older, that, okay, no, it's not like I'd rather litter my own car than take out my trash out of the car. So I think it's also from a young age, we need to be taught, like Dr. Kukofu was saying, that it's attitude. It all
social engineering
is to attitude. So campaigns, paying for the plastic, also getting rewards. Some sort of reward system. If you are going to hand in some plastic bottles, you get like 1 CD or 2 CDs or whatever. The more plastic bottles you have, the more money you get. Things like that, Benjamin.
Well, we are innovating in other ways. How can we do same here? Well, before we take a break, water is life. Awake is premium purified water treated through a strict purification process to ensure that every bottle on the market refreshes you better. And guess what? We have the perfect sizes for all purposes. 330 and 500 ml bottles to fit your pockets and bags, 750 ml for the heavy drinkers, and 1.5 liters for those who always want more. Well, our 19-liter jar bottles are ideal for homes and offices, and all you must do now is drink Awake Purified Drinking Water wherever you go. Choose a bottle of Awake Purified Drinking Water today and get quality hydration. Awake Purified Drinking Water, one for life. Remember, for every bottle you buy, an amount is donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center. It's another quality product by Casapreco Company Limited. For bulk purchases, call 0262 351 251. This advert is FDA approved. I was just sipping on Awake water before coming on the show, and I'm going to continue sipping on it right after this break. But stay with us. We'll be back after this break.
To be a place of witches. The story of Auche has come to change the name absolutely to Gambaga to being the home of the tallest man.
He became known as the tallest man in Ghana, but that fame brought him pain and anguish.
My health condition is somehow not better at all, not even somehow, it's not better at all. The back of the ball in my back and then my spinal cord and then the growth hormone in me, my chronic ulcer all of that, that made me not feel better.
Suleimana Abdul Samed was not born this tall. He woke up one day to realize he was growing taller and taller by the day. Awuche, as he is popularly known, was diagnosed with a rare endocrine disorder called acromegaly, which is caused by excess of growth hormone in the body.
It started just like a small wound like this, something like pompo, but you know pompo, yes. So it started that way, and then all of a sudden, if the way I'm growing, the wound too is growing, but it will just get to a point that it goes. The wound go. You see that all of a sudden it come back again, and then it started expanding. If I'm growing, the wound too is growing.
But every cloud has a silver lining. Awuche does not see his medical condition as a disadvantage. He believes God has a plan for him too.
God has never done a mistake in his creation. This is my condition. I see it in a different way, as a blessing, and then the other way as a sick person. I know I'm not fine. I'm a sick person, but the other way I see it as a blessing.
Now, how tall is the tallest man in Ghana? Could he be 7 feet or 8 feet tall?
The story of the 29-year-old went viral in 2021 when JoyNews reporter Nuruddin Mohammed visited Awuche in his village. That will change his life for good.
I made an appeal, a very big one, and then BBC came and covered me on that, and then a lot of media houses came to me, covered me on that, and then fortunately on my part, McDan hear it, and then seen it, and then hear it, and said, I think this guy, I have to intervene and see how I can help.
My team in the north called me, and they know what I do. So they called me that, oh, Uche has a problem, and his problem is lingering. And if we have the tallest man in the world who is having a problem, no one McDan can do. So I quickly called Kelvin, my foundation team, and Carlos, to pay him a visit and see what we can do for him.
The McDan Foundation has come to Awuche's aid. The foundation committed to fully funding the medical treatment.
Having the tallest man in the world at your backyard is a big deal. If you ask me, it's a big deal. And that must be looked seriously. And we cannot allow, as a nation, we cannot allow such a person, excuse my language, rot in the north. This man can produce a whole lot of medical dossier, a whole lot of medical research. I believe by now Nogochi, Kolebu, or any of the teaching hospitals supposed to have called him long ago to look into his abnormality, look into why this is, he happens to be the tallest man in the world. His genes, they have to look at his DNA. So many doctors, psychologists, neurosurgeons, biochemists, everybody is supposed to have a whole classroom researching on him.
I'm sure Dr. Bule requested all the labs.
Already, Awuche is currently undergoing a series of ultrasound scans at the Blue Valley Specialist Medical Center. This will help tailor the best treatment for the young man.
Yeah, Dr. Bule is one orthopedic surgeon in the whole world. And we happen to have him right here in Ghana. I picked Oche to the best doctor for him to look at his situation. We're not picking him. It's expensive. It's expensive to use a doctor like Dr. Bule, but it's a resource we want. We're not doing it for show. We don't, you know, McDan, we don't do things for show. Many at times we do these things not to show off. But we only would like to bring this to attention of the world and also to the country, to other people, to know that anybody can do something to help in its own small way.
You see the kind of surgeries, the x-rays that we are taking in the sample, the blood samples, the stool, the urinary, everything is on scan. They are processing it to see how they can help me in my health condition. They can bring a better life to me.
Awuche's prayer is to live a normal life and at the very least enjoy the fame that his height has brought him.
Still watching the AM show, and we just had a big conversation on plastic waste in our seas. But let's go back to Koligono, where Michael Ashali is with some fishermen there. All right, so he is at Jamestown. Michael, can you tell us what's happening there?
Not far from here, you have a mountain of waste here. Sometimes you'd see occasional avalanche here, but there are quite a number of people who have this discussion with me whilst you are talking about plastic in the ocean. Fishermen particularly are growing concern about the number or the quantum of waste, that is plastic waste, that they have to rescue from the ocean to the seashore rather than the fish that they went in for. To have that conversation, I have this gentleman here who are guided, who will help me with that particular conversation. Now, there are quite a number of them, but this is exactly what we will do it. So let me start with my gentleman. Okay, so let me start here. Baby, Ademo. Okay. Ademo, enti Sisiano, my Richard Wakon, so on the fisherman Akasa, and we say, Sisia fisherman so I'm about rubber baby ba and a baller baby band saying sometimes even fish and Musimo coaching. Oh, Mokwa, insurance to say, Sisia.
Insurance in a ballers no ho, the insurance now I am Nibola and Basolo.
But Bola, yes, it says Mizuza Otihano. Bola, yes, and Cochin should send Bola and produce Bola.
Ball and the other say, I na maybe I'm up Lamuses Hana, Bola and Amadu Bensunano, and Tinayana, Bola and the Consumo.
Okay. Me Babaka baby saw the mo, then a bay ya fahon. Your best son, Senna DNT, CCR. Important touch about it.
I told Raphael Oko Ankra.
Okay. Raphael, Bohoye, Jamestown be an honor. She may not get you, will a man make a come to be an air. I may bola fat, you know me. Bono fata me be bola tefionia and show me.
Bola and qualo you ampa. Bola le, what Mamma San or few bola. Yeah, because so many you want to be any no kaka, sabi anything. Be a no get joy about. Eko be na bao. Ni je pako abana ba interview. Ye be me shinumoni ge yo be ni ebani bola esafo ke problem eji. Ani zoom layo ake government ni ji nanado danko akufo Mr. Excellency. Won pale 5 years be ami ani zoom layo be awo na kan joy low money roba tumo 20 ye be wo meni wo be ne awele mekume na me tuna ganie ni ekmo me wo ba kwa be wo yo be ni wo le problem be ane no ni gabo you can be no nga joy ba no nga fe na ganie na jira na gan roba ka jira na gan roba wo meni wo be won tu e ma teke 1 city po an wo po won na ge 1 city an wo ka to atmo manke 330 to 4 bola lo le ba ma gon e be wo meni wo be wo lo fe ka wo tankemi mo go nye ngme no ko e gan mo shpo e ya ge tank ji ma mo be oni mi shishi no ga ja fe na gan na guy no one way no me yo. Yeah.
Okay. Back to but essentially what Ademo and himself have been saying, the two gentlemen I've already spoken to, is that the waste they know for a fact that is generated by the communities that line the sea, especially in the Greater Accra region. But most of this end up in the ocean. So the last gentleman I spoke to clearly states that it will take many more people and many more effort to get the waste off the beach first, so that doesn't wash into the ocean. The first fisherman that I spoke to tells me that yes, it's true that when they go on the sea, they get much more waste compared to previously. This is another fisherman here. Please, Patrick, if I was saying. Tete kwaku tete boho ya nsho no o ya wo okay obia na ke bola ni yo insho me kenyete ten yo ten bia ne
bola taflache onupa ye ke wo se onupa se bi aminchi amile ni problem pa office ye insho ne na akeshi bola ejo kole mi keje kole mi that e ban show okay ban show me ni gole ma mete wo ka me ba na me ya ka me ba dweson ba me keba oka make ba tafla ejule nu na amnya am eko beni apawo shika mba nu na bu nu ka me ba na je bola nu be ejule je mi oka ejule je ma gbe ni shop alole nu be anu emi nu oka me te wo na ba bola so me ba ka me te wa mi na lu o npo nu pa ya fa se am kon awo shin ko na me ba bola ni ye bi ni ka me ba machine tafla na me me fi o mi ne ke tu ni ezula ya mi ka kwa mi ke kon ba wo shin wo fi o ba wa koni yani bien na fe fale kum ke bien fe kum bola so ni bo ahye bien ko yin bo agbono bo echebu ona boy ba bien ni bo ajeje ko ba bien ni bola so ko ba no dum bola mi ko ko o ba achebu o echebu ni jestan kla na ke brofo me kla na mbata bien ni mene ni wo ba ni ke brofo me ba bien na ba hin bola mi ko ko e fan wo ko no kwa e fa sha me bo na ma me wa wo ko ni wo wa mi
ni Mimba, so just to translate what he's saying, so he says again he also agrees that going on the sea, they end up catching a lot more waste than previously. However, he thinks that the solution to this problem is to provide them with more waste bin. This second time I'm hearing that. But the question here is, will the waste bins be the solution to the problem of plastic ending up in the ocean? Well, me try to catch hanye bola ni try to catch be ni ne back because many ke ban try make a bola pi ba hwe shona.
I know na akejo nu mi na ke ba mo no na ka no show ke ba lule mo ni anu o fi ai bia na che na ka no skeja ke di ba machine lole ba machine ke di mben emeni me na he na me ko bia lo tafla meni me na me yo bia na ka afik na pulete ke lole ba machine ba nya lo aka wo mi o jo ebere ba enye ku se ya insure mi don si da ne ya wo bia ne ba fi fale ko ni won wo fe won wo ya chi.
Okay, my last gentleman will join me to find some solution to some of this conversation. Pacho, your friend was saying, "Ena, ejuma be na oye wo epona no wa no."
Okay, me de call. Me ya fisherman, me ko nsu no so.
Sisi ano bola na wo epono mo no, wo na wo ko ho enti. Eti sense sisi a ema wo.
Oh, bola no de ano no ohan pa. Ya to net no pogu nsu no mu a, ye botwa na mbiamba, bola ngoten na yetumi ya de ye de finso ade na ye de ba. Ti bola no ohan pa. Nti ye pese aban ye mu bibi. Uko baby a uko ada kante na boda no omufangu epunu mu dam omo pe baby a boda no wa de wodugu na ye Ghana no akunto Accra kwa mpa do Ghana ye capital town na Accra mpa no hwe bola wa boda na bebre baby a ye tia omo akolete toilet ofi top o ma abantu no mu ni na so amayereba ye kaka na toilet ni wo no o ya anya fisherman na ye fi baby na ya ba Accra na ye edwuma no nti ni na na chi no government no botum we take decision ma bibia otuma akoturu ame.
Okay, nti sisi ano let me translate that first. So he tells me that he knows even for a fact that people channel their waste directly from their homes, those homes right along the beach, directly into the ocean. But let's talk solution now. So sisi ano then on who say abanye anaye sisi a ebema de we so esu etwa.
Okay, is ye pede ye catch up there. Board na omutu gunsu mu no ye. Nti onpe baby a do Ghana baby a ebia woda de besisi a border no omo pra omo de bogu ma card be ba fa ala ko bebi a omo bokwa egotu egu ho mo na
the ball de ne ba ha wan na be sesa ball na egu mu
chi sa afa zim lion afa nkofi bi a
pesa obeye bi
se abada ada bede yen na ebotumi ya bo aban ma gana na bibi akoturu
okay be that say let me ask you this mini wo afi bi anani ni ne fen bakpa boni bola ka ya nsure me don
bi ane bi wo afi di wo pa government va ikele ho containers ni ka wo fe nuku wo loju ni akawom ko ni tafrache kam ko yini po bi ane ni kwa fo shpon ko ni wo bole kai ai bi ane kaji wo na ni bi ni wo ka machi na ka bola ka kwa fo shpon ka ko fikle no ya no na bu no ke nsure ko le no ekele ya o pa fa ya ke she bomo ni le wa ko ni wo wale
okay ma ba ko nye ka ya heko ofane bo mi no ba fe bi ane o we bola ni fe si Bama de sanon ke bola because ke bola ni ba me ke piba fata mi no afi
ni ele to me na yo na gan kaji bola ni e ba to me ni we shije bola ni e ba wo fin egole mi ne gen awole me atu ime no mo go nye ga du ekwa anmishi oni mi shin du ekwa lo nye ba to me ni bla yo ke zun la yo bi ye mi zun la yo bi 1000 ni won wo mi ni wo yo bi won wo 50 alo wo 100 de won tu je no ko me na tu le gbikome shina ga ni bi e ba mamo hie ka na no atu no bola e ba ya oni mi shin ekopo ba don because brother kumo wele bi ene no ati ojo aso ga ni bi a shanlo a feno na toilet eje ni toilet machine bi e be fo na kan oni mi shin won pa fai government eyin me ni ba anye e wale won gaga me ba won ba support me won ba wa ni bi ene fa fali awo petrol jale wa wonye me ba ya wo na te so na ga do e ba e musu shan bi ane ka to mo lo ko me na 1 million ba ge e jara wa e jele oni mi shi keji etene na piye e ba chenu shi na etene na pi na dudu e so wele eyin.
Okay, I'll come back to him again. So at least from what I've heard all throughout, it's a matter of enforcing some of the laws that already exist, and government must come strong on polluting the beaches. She munyina mokasa nunye fenye we inu ni mogon ka kashi amomoko ke ya prison alo agwamoko alo afenoko efeto mo be ja government eke eba wo manager say ban ne ho be shemo. In terms of the attitude of the people, how can we stop people? Do we have to arrest more people? We have to ban people from doing all that they do along the beaches? Let me hear from you first. Me do afi yeah bomade san okay mam ha back fanti then op say sisi e fa nipa na mo ye ade no yem chi omo e fa mo go prison ane ye omo den sisi a
da bia mo ye bibia no omo kasa kire omo e bia mo sesa na bibia e fan wa
ya kan so still omo go so yo
nti mi so ma kire me say se na omo kan mo sisi no omo san so bio se fi se bibia no beni na o hwe bibia nti omo ni so mo kasa asem kire omo obo say mo ni abile nti na ma sen sisi no.
So he wants us to dialogue more with people, offenders, with this situation. He doesn't agree that we should have stiffer punishment. What mean what feel biane?
No more to be oyu na gani. Lele keji anye ni announce aga onege bi. Lele atobodo gba na daje bi gbomono na aga shibia femini a daje bi no keji a daje bi na announce aga bi na pa bola ke bi asuemo ko ga bola ba bi no wa ti aso na mobo agabo nya onimi shi ye aga poster ke ni bi ego la fe no go design go ni mogo taflache e toilet a fe le poster agbo agbagba ni bi me ngmani won awole wo to be ni iwe shije won ko na ganu tumo no problem go be e wa akura no le announce bo won na ga sa no kejo ba fitele ba mobo ka agabo aban agabo no agabo fe no koloko o fe ni ne announce aye ake changer speaker ipadi odo ake bi ani Shatter Beach yeni wole me ba je ati bola aso eje do anya ye nsho na do mo fe mo nuwe no ne boto to emi ye ke akomogo to emi mo ne te to emi ye e ba ke mo ne bote ko to emi no kaji mo ba ne so shipe na mobo pe je na gabo no afo ni ne anabo amobo o fa ni wole mo nupa wona ashi machine e ba so shi e bi e be le we nu aga announce alo enu aga announce no ne enu aga shi announce problem go be ka mo le da bi mra gele ba ye ya ga gani ne ka tai no atai fine. Be an if you muji, but what you want, I be a muji. One no one, sir. A bad problem, no go do ever show again.
All right, so the gentleman, at least for what I like from him, is that he's nominating himself first to begin some sort of watchdog, community watchdog, to check some of these. But he wants the laws to be enforced to the latter and made more stringent to prevent people from polluting the beaches, which end up in the ocean. Let me do this final one, then we'll call it a wrap. So, because a man for no, the ball on the back, I want to slam the goof from. You be your modem or mojai.
Out there, about off a can. Nancha I announcement, pano, baby, I'm to board a guina, baby, I'm to board a guina, about for can. No, I announcement. I catch you there. Oh, Sisia and Pano, Yabodo will say, Mobian toilet, Mobian 2 ball and go. And she said, I know them in Pano, Ebia. Why ask what didn't you about to win a go? I'll say about you, because we were abandoning Brado. About I announcement to them, Monko private on Pano, Monko to board and phone Pananti. I had naturally a peda, Abano, a peda, Obaka. Because at the car, I the scanner at the Madden, then Jabiana, a boom Ranada, also watch it, baby, or the call.
So at least it cuts across from the people that be spoken to today that one thing they want government to do to curb the menace is to enforce the law to the latter and be more stringent on them. And it should not hesitate to punish those who fall foul of the law. They want the pollution of the ocean to stop, especially with plastic waste. For fishermen here at Jamestown, it's a bigger challenge than they can deal with, and we need government to come in to help. A difficult task, but a necessary one that must be done at this moment in time. Well, this is just the beginning of the conversation that must be had. For JoyNews, Michael Ashale.
A difficult task indeed, but we need to start somewhere. We'll be bringing you more on that conversation. You're still watching the AM show. We're going to take a quick breather. When we come back, we go to Nigeria and we also open the phone lines for you. You're welcome back to the AM show. A big conversation just gone by, Benjamin. And hopefully, I mean, this is a conversation that since I've been in Ghana, and that's been like, what, 8 years? And we've been talking about it, so I can only imagine how long.
Don't you worry, it's a conversation that has gone on for practically forever.
It's the same thing with the floods. Every year, you can use your same script from last year or from like 5 years back, and it'll still be the same. Accra floods, plastic waste.
Reminds me of the Canadian who was betting every year that Accra would flood, and the company had to cancel that bet. How terrible is that?
How terrible is
for someone to know that you're going to be so lethargic that every year Accra floods will trend.
Yeah.
You know, and as we speak of plastic, we cannot avoid speaking about flooding as well, because that is another consequence of our actions. But in any case, as you can see in our background, we're heading to Nigeria now to give you just a bit of insight into what has been happening from there. And so many scenes, in fact, ballot box snatching, resisting, vote counting, voting starting very late, the announcement of votes also, showing up very late or turning up very late, contrary to what the plan had been from the INEC. But there are lots of positives as well. The observer missions from the AU, ECOWAS, among others, also saying that largely this has been a free and fair enterprise, but it has been fraught with problems as well. So as you can see, or as we'll be getting to you shortly with our guests, it's a live update from the BBC in terms of the PDP, the Labour Party, and the APC. But the PDP and the Labour Party have called for a cancellation of results. The question is, why? We'll be getting details from Mayowa Tijani, who joins us on Zoom. He's a Nigerian journalist and fact checker. So what is fact and what is fiction? Mayowa, a very good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining the conversation. Now, we just gave you that highlight, if you like, the PDP and the Labour Party. So we're talking about Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi calling for a cancellation of the results. Can you give us a briefing on why this is happening?
So I think that's the major problem we've been having in this election has been the Electoral Commission over-promising and under-delivering. So we've had a situation where the Electoral Commission had told everyone multiple times, repeatedly, that they were not going to have any problems with logistics, they were not going to have any problems with dealing with technology and all the innovation they were bringing to the electoral process. So hopes were high. People were expecting that the election would start as at when it was built to start, and people were expecting that the results would be uploaded to the IREF portal, which is the INEC result viewing portal. So when the process got underway, first thing was logistic problems, voter material not getting to the voting point in time, elections not starting as at the time they were meant to, people complaining about fuel. In fact, there were a few polling units that we monitored where we found people's INEC officials basically saying that they needed some money to get to the polling units. So we've had quite some of those issues, and basically was Nigerians saying, you told us that this was not going to happen. Now it's happening. And of course, somehow people were able to vote, elections took place, and then it's time for results. So people are expecting that we'll go to the IREF portal and we would see the results and we'll compare the results to what we experienced. So the results are supposed to be uploaded to this portal from every single polling unit in the country. So as at the time the collation began, we found that many of the results were not yet uploaded to the portal. And so this started raising questions about the credibility of the entire process. In fact, we've had a few situations where electoral officers are supposed to upload the picture to the portal. The picture, like they're supposed to take a picture of the final results at polling units and upload to the portal. But what we found was that people were uploading their own pictures to the portal. So somebody would take a selfie and put it on the IREF portal. So all of this is basically what is undermining the credibility of the process and creating a lot of challenge for some of these political parties that are now requesting that the elections be cancelled or be done or whatever their requests are.
Now, so that has been problematic, and it has caused the PDP and the Labour Party to make this call. How are Nigerians reacting to that call? I mean, the expectations were lofty. The delivery has not been as lofty. How are Nigerians reacting to that? And are Nigerians, by and large, those you may have interacted with, are they in agreement with this call for the results to be cancelled? I also premise that question on what Olusegun Obasanjo put together for President Buhari, his suggestions saying that he must step in, he must intervene because things are out of hand. How are they reacting?
So I think that largely, most of the reactions you would get now will depend on what part of the divide you belong to. For example, if you're a supporter of the Labour Party, you will likely be asking that the elections be cancelled and redone. If you're supporting the PDP, that would likely be your position. But for the party that is currently seen to be winning, which is of course the president's party in this case, they've kept on saying that the elections have been fair, the elections have gone according to plan. There might be a few hitches here and there, but we can't, because of that, pour the entire thing away. So a lot of the reaction that we are getting is dependent on what part of divide the people belong to. And of course, the message that President Olusegun Obasanjo is sending is also not particularly out of place. It is expected, especially as the former president had at the beginning of the year endorsed Peter Obi of the Labour Party. So if that had not happened, if the endorsement did not come before now, it would have been speaking maybe as a non-partisan person in the whole electoral process. But
you would admit he is not bound. He is not bound to, think as the governing party would want, or he is not bound. He has a free mind and he can choose to support whom he likes. But in this instance, is that to say that the suspicion is that his thinking is partisan or biased in a way? Is that to say he cannot express his support for Peter Obi and yet realistically, as a former president, also say things are not going well, regardless of that?
Of course, he's a free moral agent, and of course he can speak his mind on these matters. And of course, as he is known historically, the former president speaks his mind on virtually every national issue that is interested in, writes letters to the president, has been at loggerheads with the ruling party for a few years now. So yes, all of that is expected, and he can speak of the elections whichever way he sees it fit. But what I'm trying to say is that the interpretation of Obasanjo's letter and request at this time is being seen as partisan, even if he were not, because of the position he had held concerning these elections before. Maybe the APC had responded to him last night saying that he's basically planning a coup in a democracy. So you see, the conversation back and forth is more or less looking like a partisan conversation between a certain party and the ruling party. I think that, yes, the former president has the right to say all of the things he said. And of course, there are causes to worry about this particular electoral process because of some of the things we've seen. However, I'm just saying that the interpretation that the government, you could almost even say at this point in Nigeria that if former President Obasanjo goes to the right, the current president, Muhammadu Buhari, would definitely go to the left, because both of them have not seen eye to eye on many issues in the past couple of years. So that's what is playing out in this one too.
Let's also look at the view of the ruling APC. What has been the reaction? We know that the current president, Muhammadu Buhari, has not spoken to the issues yet, but what has been the reaction of the camp of Bola Tinubu? What can you share with us on that?
Yeah, so Bola Tinubu's camp is sort of, should I say, relaxed in a sense. They're seeing themselves as the guys coasting to victory. They're taking the opportunity to say that, we should already be thinking about the next election, the gubernatorial election coming up in 2 weeks. There are people saying to Bola Tinubu himself that he should be preparing his acceptance speech. There are talks about, he even came out, I think it was yesterday, to say that you win some and you lose some. And he was speaking about Lagos in particular because he lost Lagos State, which happens to be a stronghold to Peter Obi. But then he was using the opportunity to say that the electoral process has been fair, in that if he could lose his stronghold, then that means that the process has been fair. So that everybody should come together and Nigerians should move on to like the next phase of this entire process. So his camp, clearly because they're winning, believe that the process has been fair, the process has been free, and that people should get ready to come together and work for a united Nigeria.
Olusegun Obasanjo has suggested that if this situation, people are very unhappy, and if things don't go well, it could escalate into a crisis or chaos. What is the ruling administration considering what that could mean? And I'd also like to find out from you the cost of organizing another election, which is basically what the PDP and the Labour Party are calling for now, with the right metrics. So when the INEC says we're going to only use the biometric systems, that is the only ones that will apply, not manual systems. And also what Obasanjo is suggesting. what would that be for Nigeria? I mean, it may not, in the full stroke of what they are saying, be what they are asking for, but Obasanjo, for example, says that in those areas where there have been problems, something should be done. The elections should be held again for the biometric, details to be picked rather than the manual ones in those areas where there are problems, right?
Yes.
So what then are the options for Nigeria? Because if you're going to organize this again, it would come at great cost. Billions of naira were spent on this enterprise. Is Nigeria ready for that?
I do not think that the country is ready for a second election, like another election, not a second election, but like another election in like doing the entire process all over again. One is going to cost a lot. This election particularly cost about, give or take on the umpire's part, about 350 billion naira, which is almost, by official rates, which is almost some $700 million. So it's a lot of money. Elections in Nigeria are expensive. The political parties also spend quite a lot to campaign, to get people to come vote for them. And basically, elections in Nigeria is very expensive. However, there's the option. Nigerians, the government can consider to run some repeat of some elections in some of the places where there were challenges. But what that would do would be, it would extend the uncertainty within the entire system. And of course, generally, people prefer to know whether the decision is a good one or a bad one than to be left in limbo. So for example, if we have to do some of these elections again, which is one of the possibilities, it would mean that a president cannot be declared at least in the next 7 to 14 days within the country. And of course, it's a short time in the grand scheme of things, but it's going to basically be a time of uncertainty for a lot of Nigerians. So I think that it is possible to conduct some of those elections again, but the willingness of INEC to do that is what I currently cannot speak to.
Let's talk about the low turnout. It's pretty stark, isn't it? The turnout has been, some would describe, absurdly low, looking at the numbers that were expected to turn out. Some 93 plus million, some 84 million that were really expected to vote. But the numbers that have trickled in have not been encouraging at all. What is the rhetoric on that? What are people talking about? Is it apathy?
It's actually sad that this election that the nation has basically waited for this long, that there's been so much enthusiasm, that there's been so much interest, that we are now having a situation where, as of this morning, all the votes put together are still shy of 20 million votes. So that is incredibly low. I don't think that in recent history that we've had it this bad. And one of the reasons for that is, one, voter suppression. There's been a lot of fear in the system that there will be violence. We had already seen a number of pre-election violence in some of the key states. And so this sort of put fear in people to say, okay, I'm not going out to vote. And there's been some situation where it's also about the credibility. So people saying that I got to my polling unit at 8:30 a.m. ready to vote. And by the time I got there, I found out that the officials were not yet on ground. I waited for 2 hours, 3 hours. They still didn't come. So I went back home. And of course, we had situations, we had some of the polling units where electoral officials were coming at 1 p.m., 2 p.m. In fact, there was one that past 3 p.m. People were voting into the night. So some people are interested and say, no matter what happens, I'm going to vote, I'm going to stay through the process. And there are a lot more people who believe like, I don't have time for this. If they cannot arrive at the stipulated time, then why should I trust this election? So some of those logistical challenges and voter intimidation and voter suppression is basically one of the reasons why we're having these really, really low numbers.
Interesting dynamics there. Any other thoughts you'd like to share with us? With the results that have trickled in, though, so we know Lagos fell for the first time since this democratic endeavor in 1999. The ruling administration has always won Lagos, but this time Peter Obi snatched it from, well, right under the eyes of Bola Tinubu. But in other areas, we know Bola won in Ekiti, Badagry, other places. Badagry, of course, also part of Lagos. But tell us, what is it shaping up like in Nigeria currently, as far as you know it, with the latest votes? Is it still Bola Tinubu in first place, Atiku Abubakar, who has called for a cancellation of the results, in second, and Peter Obi in third? What are the dynamics? Break them down for us.
Yes, that's what we're still seeing. Bola Tinubu is still in the lead by over votes, and Atiku Abubakar is right behind him. Then Peter Obi is shy of both of them with about 2 million votes, depending on which of the candidates.
So I have a bit of an update. I have a bit of an update, if you could just confirm for me, because from what I'm seeing now, 25 out of 36 states from our research desk, Tinubu now has 7 million votes, which constitutes some 36% of the votes. Atiku has 6 million, which constitutes some 30 million, and 30%, I beg your pardon. And then Peter Obi has 3.8 million, constituting some 20%. And of course, this is just 25 out of 36 states, which would leave some 11 states to go. We all know that at least that person who comes up tops would also require, if not, there would be a runoff, would also require 25% of votes from 2/3 of the states. That is 24 out of 36 states. So that's the latest I have. Any add-ons?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. Bola Tinubu, of course, is leading the polls now. But if he does not get the required 25% of votes in at least 25 states, he is not going to be declared president. So there will be a runoff. Now, one of the things that his party is particularly working hard at right now is to make sure that they hit that threshold. Because if they don't hit that threshold, if we go by the results we have right now, there will be a second election that will be between just 2 candidates. And in this case, it's likely, depending on the spread. Right now, Peter Obi is said to be leading in about 14 states, while Atiku Abubakar is said to be leading in about 11 states. Now, the person who eventually leads in more states between the 2 of them would then have to go head-to-head with Bola Tinubu in what is referred to as the second election. Now, in this second election, one of the sentiments that we're getting within the country is that a lot of Nigerians would rally behind any of Peter Obi or Atiku Abubakar to defeat the ruling party candidate, which is Bola Tinubu. So what they're trying to make sure happens right now is to make sure that they don't get to that position. They don't get to that point, because if they do, if you even look at numbers right now, of course, it's not going to be exactly like that. But if we look at numbers right now, Bola Tinubu has over 7 million votes. Peter Obi has 4.3 million votes. Atiku Abubakar has 6 million votes. Now, if one of Atiku Abubakar or Peter Obi were to run against Bola Tinubu in the second elections, most of their supporters would rally together and face the ruling party. So it would be a case where we are saying 6 million votes from Atiku, 4 million votes from Peter Obi. That's 10 million votes. That would be a lot over what Bola Tinubu currently has.
But we cannot say for sure that, let's say, Atiku voters would vote for Peter Obi, or that Peter Obi voters would vote for Atiku if they were to face off with Bola Tinubu. But something else that I am curious about in this instance, did you suggest that, for example, Peter Obi could get less votes, but if he won more states than Atiku, for example, then he would go into a runoff with Bola Tinubu? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely. So the way it's structured is that the candidate with the highest number of votes faces the candidates with the highest number of states. So even if there is a candidate in between both of them who has a lot more votes in less number of states, that candidate will be excluded from the second election. So
and for now,
the highest number of states. Yeah.
And for now, Peter Obi has won, 14 states, and Atiku has won only 11. Now, that would make it 25. How many states has Tinubu won?
No, so actually, not all the results has been declared in these states, but right now, Peter Obi is leading in 14 states, while Bola Tinubu is leading in 11 states and Atiku also in 11 states.
I see.
The results, when finally done, if Peter Obi happens to hold on to a lead in 14 states and Atiku still stays at 11, and Bola Tinubu does not have 25% in 25 states, then to be Peter Obi going up with Bola Tinubu. But of course, this is not yet conclusive, as once the counting is done, or the collation is done, which is probably, we are thinking maybe tomorrow, then to be clear to say, okay, this is what happens next.
This is turning out to be rather interesting, and we very well could see a Peter Obi Bola Tinubu runoff. I mean, it's a possibility. It's not to say it will definitely be like that. But if, like you said, the lead of Peter Obi in 14 states is retained, that would put him in pole position to win on the state level. And then he would have a runoff with whoever wins in terms of the overall votes. But when just to cap off the conversation, when, per the INEC, can we expect the full results? How much longer is it going to take?
Historically, by now, today's Tuesday, by now we should already have a president-elect declared. But because, like I said, there's been some logistical challenges, there's been some delay here and there. So we're saying maybe under 24 hours, we should have all of this put together. But worst case scenario, I think that by Thursday, we should have a firm conclusion on who the president-elect is, or if there would be a runoff. And of course, if there's going to be a runoff, it's going to happen within these 7 days after the announcement of the results from this first election. And I also would like to add that while it's not certain that all Peter Obi supporters would vote for Atiku, or all Atiku supporters vote for Peter Obi, naturally, from what the pollings have shown, for what the sentiment is in the country, people who voted for any of these candidates would vote again against Bola Tinubu if there were to be a second election.
So you're basically saying that if there were to be a runoff, maybe we'll see less apathy, more people going to the polls to vote against Bola Tinubu.
Yes, I'd say yes, that would happen.
All right. Mayowa, we're so grateful. It's been very good interacting with you on the AM show. Thank you so much for your time. Mayowa Tijani there, a journalist and fact checker, joining us for the Nigerian end of things. Right before we go, I'd like to find out from you, South African elections, how do they usually go? Are the scenes reminiscent of what we're seeing in Nigeria? Anything close?
Obviously not as slow as to get the results.
Not as slow, so quicker.
Not as much violence, but a bit of violence here and there. Vote buying, definitely. Yeah, pretty much it. Yeah,
Well, interesting scenes. We can only pray. I would honestly love to see a runoff.
Yeah.
And to see Peter Obi. I am biased towards him. And,
we know.
And it is obvious.
Yeah.
Go neck to neck, toe to toe with Bola Tinubu. And I don't want to say certain things, but let's see how it goes.
Let's see how it goes. It's been a fantastic, fantastic show. Thank you so much for joining us from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Remember, the conversation is on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're JoyNews on TV with the hashtag The AM Show.
And right before we go, happy birthday to Ayan Enna Chahe of Edela Community School, Lashibi Community 20. God bless you and empower you for greater works. We love you so much. Ayan Enna Chahe of Edela Community School in Lashibi Community 20. It's from your parents, Mr. and Mrs. Chahe and Ajiman family. Happy birthday to you. And on that note,
thank you
Mapitso,
very much.
Sebidi.
And Benjamin Akakpo. It's been a fantastic, fantastic show. Up next is JoyNews Desk. So stay tuned.